Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Experience Kills. I am your host Ben, and I'm going to introduce him first because he's been away a while. We have missed him. Richard is back. Richard is back. Come on!
I'm back. I'm alive. I'm almost recovered. He has battled through COVID and is back on the show. Woo!
Welcome back.
It's
Slain the mighty beast of Rona and return to us at the turn of the tide.
Yeah. So I've missed you guys.
missed you, man.
Glad to be back and looking forward to doing our Game of the Year show in February. So
Yeah,
sorry
first
about
time
that.
ever.
Had to bring that one up, didn't you?
First time ever. With us also today, because it's all four of us in the house, we have Robula.
Hello.
He is here. He is here. Always here.
I'm always here.
Steady old Rob here, recording for us this show because my computer has turned to shit in the new year and I can no longer do it. So Rob is saving the day and is here with his Game of the Year views ready to go in this format, which we'll explain shortly. But with us, the wild card, the rebel, the Ronin, the long-haired weirdo, it's Cameron.
Hello. Pleasure, everybody.
Clicking away, still getting the stats together. He's been collating our gamer score information for some little tidbits in relation to, I don't know if you listened, Richard, but we did video game first dates in the last couple of weeks where we kind of asked each other these kind of intimate gaming questions, which was quite a lot of fun. So if you haven't listened, I do recommend going back.
Ben got lucky. I felt uncomfortable. It was all good.
Sounds like
drunk. I was drunk by the end of the first episode.
Just stay drunk. Go forward. So it's great to have you back, Richard. Like, anything before we get into Game of the Year quickly, anything you want to update us on other than COVID? Anything that stood out? I mean, you obviously must have spent a lot of time watching Netflix and crap for the last sort of 3 months. Have you seen anything good? Are you caught up on Mando? Have you watched WandaVision? I mean, what's going on in Richard's viewing times? So good.
It's funny how little I remember of the past couple of months, you know. Just it just feels like I've slept for a while. But now you remind me, yes, I have caught up on Mando. What a great show. Although, I'm not going to spoil the end for anyone that hasn't seen it yet, but weird CGI. What else have I watched? I've watched one episode of WandaVision. Does it change from what it
Yes.
begins with?
Yes, it really does. Keep watching. Oh my god.
I haven't watched any yet.
Dude, the end of the newest episode is just earth-shattering in its implications. It's the only thing I can tell you.
Yes.
Well, I can't spoil that. Nobody should spoil that. It's incredible.
The spoiler for it, the actor in question has not shut up about it for the past month.
Oh, brilliant.
No.
So
I need to
I
watch
hadn't
that.
seen that. I hadn't
Yeah.
seen any of that.
it's because no one's really paying attention to him. They are now. So
It's epic. It's epic.
But that first episode is strange, isn't it? It's like
Oh, it's all
how to
strange.
put someone off a series.
it's all
So I'll-
strange, but it's
I'll carry
so
on.
worth carrying on.
It's very, very odd.
Think of it that it's the way I'm sort of viewing it is that it's a long Marvel movie split up into chunks. So you're still in sort of like the opening kind of act, the setup-y bits.
Yeah.
So you've got a couple of weird episodes, and then things start getting developed, and they develop at a breakneck
Can I
pace.
just draw attention to what Cam did there? He attempted to lean away from the microphone to cough, and in the process of doing that, hit the microphone, and then still picked up the cough. I mean, that's professionalism there, right there, guys. Just saying, that's incredible.
I didn't hit the microphone. What?
You did. I heard it. You hit something. A big twang went through my headphones. So that bodes well for the rest of the episode.
That might have been me hitting my microphone, to be fair.
Stop hitting the microphones! Right. Without further ado, shall we explain the format of this episode? This is going to be, it's a bit different. So we took what we did last year after I reminded Richard that episode existed. And even though it was his idea. So we took what we did last year and we're modifying it slightly. We have 21 games on our shortlist, which we will go through from top to bottom in no particular order shortly. We will eliminate down to 12. So we will eliminate 9 of those games in a 30 to 45-minute discussion in which we nominate ones to be removed and then maybe rebuffed. At those final 12, they will go into a head-to-head contest in which the winner will stay on. That could mean that one of your favorites gets picked straight away and then has to battle through the remaining games. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm coming into this without a preconception. I've got some favorites, but I don't have a particular game in mind for this. So I'm really, really looking forward to this discussion. I hope that makes sense, what I've explained, but we will definitely make sense as we go along. It's going to be a battle. We've got some great games on this list, some slightly weird ones as well. So it's going to be really interesting as to where this all folds out. Would you guys like me to go through the games?
Go for it, Ben.
Do it.
Okay, and like I said, this is not in a ranked order of any way. It's just how we've written them in our notes. So we have Cyberpunk 2077 by Projekt Red. We have Assassin's Creed Valhalla by Ubisoft. We have Ghost of Tsushima by Sucker Punch. Tesla Force by 10 Tons Limited. Star Wars Squadrons by EA. Tetris Effect Connected by Monstars and Resonair. Rebel Galaxy Outlaw by Double Damage. Doom Eternal by ID Software. Oh, sorry, I can't say that. id Software. Nobody calls it ID Software. That's upsetting. Carrion by Phobia Game Studio, One Finger Death Punch 2 by Silver Dollar Games, Last of Us Part 2 by Naughty Dog, Hades by Supergiant Games, Destiny 2 Beyond Light by Bungie, FIFA 21 by EA, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 by Vicarious Visions, Valorant by Riot Games, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time by Toys for Bod, Call of Duty Warzone by Activision, Ori and Will of the Wisps by Moon Studios, Yakuza Like a Dragon by Ryo Gotoku Studio, and Animal Crossing New Horizons by Nintendo. So we have some big names on here. We have some little names on here. We have some weird stuff. We have some obvious stuff. And if you guys, which I'm sure most of you are, follow video games, you've already seen a lot of Game of the Year coverage and seen a lot of sort of recurring games winning. Our format basically means that might not be the outcome. We don't know. So shall we get in to round one, where we start picking ones that we want to see knocked off? Now, I think we go in a particular order. Let's go Richard, Cameron, Rob, me. So, Richard. I just completely, by the way, randomized that, but I wanted to do Richard first because he's been away. Okay. Richard, what's your first game that you don't think should go into the second round?
This might be contentious. Might not.
All right,
be.
Cool. Do it. Start that way.
Cyberpunk needs to go out round
no.
one.
Agreed.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Agreed. We're only evaluating complete games.
Yes,
no,
I would argue it's not actually out yet. So how can it be in Game of the Year?
I know what you're trying to do here.
Completely agree.
And there is no way I am going to let one of my top picks for the year get knocked out in round one. The fact is that I know neither of you have really played the game. I've put about 45. I put about 45 hours into this game, and while there are undoubtedly issues, as I've talked about in previous podcasts, there's a lot of good in this game, and I really want it in the next round so I can put it up against other titles and talk about its virtues and its pitfalls in more detail in comparison to other, what you would argue, more complete game experiences. There is still a lot of very, very good game in Cyberpunk 2077, so I can't let that go.
So we have 2 votes for it being removed. Cameron, where do you...
It's not votes.
So
there's 4 votes. It's pointless to do votes. So, I mean, what are you going to host the podcast, get the bloody vote then? Okay, so I get 2. So it stays in.
Hang on, we hadn't confirmed Cameron's because
I'm not even going to, I'm not doing it.
How are we determining how games are cut then, Ben?
Because
by mutual all agreement?
Yeah, it's a consensus.
The fascist
Convince
regime
me.
held by Ben's tyranny is going to be one that really decides the end.
Convince me. No, I don't want to, that's why I don't want to do votes, because it would be unfair. So convince me. If you really want to fight this go out in this round, bear in mind you will have plenty of opportunities to do that in the next round. Convince me.
Cam, it appears Ben thinks he owns your opinion, so maybe you want to give it to us. I think you deserve your own opinion.
I agree.
To be honest, to have my opinion valued by Ben for once is actually really nice.
Jesus Christ, I'm not that bad.
See, the interesting thing is that if you'd picked me first, that this was exactly the game I was going to pick for exactly the same reason that Richard said.
When you guys were going to try and gang up on me, I did see this coming. This is very mean.
It's a difficult one because on the same time as agreeing with, to be honest, all 3 of you, it's incomplete. It is riddled with bugs. However, I've had a friend of mine who's one of the first people, probably like the first 20% of people who actually platinum the game, who has enjoyed the hell out of it with the bugs.
Yeah.
It kind of like Skate 2 was riddled with bugs, but that kind of adds to the charm of it currently. So I would say I have to agree with Ben, because I think it should stay on, because it is going to be a good game. Even with the bugs will be fixed, then we're just going to be kicking ourselves and just say, "Oh, I can't believe we kicked out of best game of the year."
I think it deserves getting on to the next round.
I think
Whether or
Cyberpunk
not
is going to be one of the best games of 2021. I don't think it was one of the best games of 2020, but we need easy things to cut in the second round.
All right, this is going really well so far. Cam, did you want to pick a game to cut as Cyberpunk is staying on the list for now?
I think it should stay on.
Yeah. So what are you going to pick? We've got to get 9 of these games off this list before we get into the second round.
Personally, out of the list that we've got here, I'd say probably a One Finger Death Punch 2.
Ooh,
Interesting. It was fun and it was a great game, but compared to like huge game titles like Assassin's Creed and like The Last of Us, I don't think it quite holds up against it. Especially if it went to like the next round, it's not going to compare to one of those ones.
it's interesting to me because obviously me and you are the ones that covered this. We both played it, I think, on PC and I played it on console as well. And I think there's a purity of experience to One Finger Death Punch 2, which is a game that sets out to do something. It isn't trying to do the most ambitious thing in the world, but what it does incredibly well. So I don't think it necessarily is about does it compare to an Assassin's Creed, like where the raft of resources. This is basically a one-man project. Maybe a few people, but very, very small. And I think what it does is make an incredibly fun game. But I do agree, it probably doesn't hold up in the next round. I think you probably, when you're comparing where it's fighting, against another title, there's just not enough there. Though there is a lot more there than there was in the first game. It's a really good sequel. They've really developed the formula, and I kind of wanted to put it there for almost like an honorable mention because I think what they've done at Steel Dollar have made a great game. Yeah, it's a really good
terrific game. A lot of fun. It's just, is it a game of the year worthy? I don't think so.
Anybody, either
I'm happy
Rob,
to agree.
Yeah, I think I broadly agree. I didn't play the first game, so that was going to be my question: is how much it builds on the first? Because sequels, it's sometimes difficult to justify putting sequels in Game of the Year list because they don't have the same impact, do they? If it's second time, third time around. Yeah, not having played the first, I did really enjoy it on Xbox. It doesn't naturally feel like a big screen console game, though. It feels like more of a mobile experience, doesn't it? So even though I really enjoyed it, didn't feel like a natural fit. Or maybe that's a harsh criticism. But yeah, certainly don't think it competes with some of the other big names on the list. So I wouldn't put up too much of a fight if you wanted it to go out.
Yeah, I echo pretty much everything there, to be honest. Looks like a very fun game, but it's not awesome. Worthy of Game of the Year. It's just not on that level.
Okay. Rob, your first pick.
FIFA.
Get rid of it!
I love the way you
burn it. FIFA. Yeah, no. Oh, come on, it's a FIFA game. Are we really going to entertain FIFA as Game of the Year? It's basically the same game as last year, slightly sharper, with slightly more people.
Rob, we could just do FIFA 17 as the same game.
At this point, FIFA 06. Just have that as Game of the Year 2020 if we're entertaining FIFA 21.
And you won't notice a difference.
The only person that can counter this is Ben.
So the reason I've put it there is that this is the first year I've got into Ultimate Team. And I've really, really enjoyed my experience with Ultimate Team. But to be fair, Ultimate Team's been a thing for ages, and I could have got into that 4 years ago and really enjoyed it. It's first year I've got into it. I think the X enhancements that they brought into this game with the fidelity of the characters, it's really impressive. Like what they've got with some of the big team main players, it looks incredible. The hair, the hair, mostly the hair. The hair does look very impressive on these character models, I have to say. But yeah, the fidelity of the experience, the fact that every year it always impresses me where it's like it's that much closer to the real thing, that much closer to the TV presentation of a game of football, but generally more entertaining than actually watching football. And I want to point out, I don't really follow football. I don't have a favorite team. I haven't done since I was a kid, and it's not like I'm massively into as a sport. And I might add, by the way, you don't see an F1 game on this list, even though I am massively into that sport. And there was an F1 game this year. I didn't put that on the list, whereas I did put FIFA 21 on the list. So I think I think that says to me, it should say that this game surprised me with how much fun it was this year, and how in a year of COVID and stress and lockdown, sometimes it's just very comforting to play a game that you are very familiar with, that you understand. I understand the sport, the rules, the mechanics, and it's just like putting on a comfortable pair of slippers and you can just get lost in it, and it isn't challenging, and it just is like a warm blanket to relax to when you've got Netflix on the other screen. And that's what FIFA did for me this year. But at the same time, I'm not arguing. I mean, again, it's an honorable mention from me, and it's more like I just wanted to acknowledge the impact that had on me this year. I think they did a really good job with this year's. But interestingly, I look at forums and stuff like Reddit. A lot of the big FIFA fans hate 21. So I don't know. To me, I really enjoyed it. So
from yourself, by the sounds of it, it was a good football game, and it has some great features, and they executed upgrades for the new hardware very well, but it doesn't go further than that.
Okay, so that's the next one out.
Yep, I think when FIFA fans are hating on FIFA 2021, that means you can get rid of it.
Agreed.
Yeah, but they're all really jaded, aren't they? They're like, the cross physics of the ball and all this crap. It's just like, I don't know about any of that. That's not why I'm playing it.
Also, you kind of got to find a video game where the fans aren't raging about the game in some way.
True. Good luck with that.
Yeah,
that's a very good point. My pick. I think Richard summed this up really well. So the impact of a sequel compared to the original game, should it be on the list? So Last of Us Part 2, I think, should be cut at this stage.
Yeah, agreed.
No chance.
Someone putting their foot down. Are they in round one? Come on, Richard. Give us a brief. We'll get into it in a bit, I'm sure. But tell me why it makes round 2.
Okay.
Even though you said yourself, sequels shouldn't be on the list.
I didn't say that. I said it's a consideration that they don't always make the impact. Last of Us Part 2 definitely does, and stands out as a top contender for me for Game of the Year this year.
But isn't The Last of Us Part 2 basically just a very long movie with a few button prompts? Because it's just a concise story.
It's not concise.
It's
not concise.
I wouldn't even describe it as... Well, it is linear in the sense that you can't choose your path through it, but the way that the narrative is presented is completely unlike anything I've played, honestly. So you get to the halfway point in this game, and I don't want to give any spoilers about detail, but how it puts you in the position of a particular protagonist and then switches that around to completely change your allegiance, your trust in people that you've come to identify with through the first game and starting out on the second one. It completely switches it around. And I've never seen a game do that to my memory. It does it so expertly that it's just an absolute pinnacle of what Naughty Dog do really well in excellent storytelling. And not just telling a story through cutscenes, it's how those characters interact with others in play. All the great dialogue that happens as you're fighting or solving puzzles or exploring. There's just so much to it, and it just kept me wrapped up right to the end. Even though, just on the count alone of hours that were put into that, it's got to be like 20 odd hours for a single player experience. It feels like it should overstay its welcome, but it really doesn't. It's just fantastic.
So I think that mechanic you described is something you'd far more likely see in good literature. So getting the different point of view is something you'd find in a book. You don't even get it in TV, really, in films. It's very rare to see that perspective shift.
It's common in novels to have that idea of the unreliable narrator and having those different perspectives and presenting someone as a hero and then looking at the other side of it. Are they such a nice person after all? Don't see that in games. It's all about you are the big man with the gun. You kill the bad guys and then you see the credits. Much more to this.
Stays on the list. I think there's more to talk about here. I think when we get into round 2, we'll do more spoilers and we'll open it up to more detailed discussion of elements such as that, because I do think what you described is a very integral part to that game. Right. Next pick, Rich.
Ooh, next to come off the list. Let's see. My eye is going to Call of Duty Warzone, not because I dislike it, but because I haven't really played it, and I'm not sure how much of an impact it's made. Has it made much?
Huge.
Mm.
It's huge. It was probably the number one battle royale game of last year. I would say. I don't even consider Fortnite that genre anymore. But yeah, so I don't even know what you call Fortnite now. It's just where kids go to be.
Crap.
The Oasis,
basically. Yeah. But no, Call of Duty Warzones is brilliant because it's that snappiness of Call of Duty, but in a battle royale game. So it's like really accessible if you've played like multiplayer Call of Duty for however many years like I have and stuff. And then it's also gives you that massive maps and the looting aspect of battle royale. So it's almost like the best of both worlds. It's like a bit PUBG, it's a bit of Apex Legends, because of the speed of the mobility and the familiarity of the controls. And it really comes together nicely. There's also vehicles in there, and they've done loads of new modes and maps and operators and new guns, and they've really supported it. And yeah, I think it's a pretty awesome kind of free-to-play ongoing model for Call of Duty. It's almost like, well, what's the point of Black Ops? Which I would definitely argue doesn't need to exist right now.
But does it stand up to games? Sorry,
I was just going to say, I've got the latest Call of Duty, Cold War, and I've played multiplayer on that. Does that qualify as Warzone, or is it a different thing?
No, it's different.
It's a different thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Can Warzone stand up to games like Ghost of Tsushima, Doom Eternal, Last of Us Part 2, and the eternally amazing Hades? Not that I'm biased.
No, probably not. Probably not. In all honesty, probably not. I think it's a great example of an F2P game. I think it's really cool that Call of Duty took it that way. That Activision made this, but then they undermined themselves by doing another annual release, and have just confirmed there's going to be another one in 2021. They're not stopping with the annual releases, and I think Black Ops was massively underwhelming when you compared it to the far superior Modern Warfare and the Warzone that came out of it. So I think
it was pretty good, actually. It was pretty good, Black Ops this year.
Really? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, all right. Not on the list though.
On the list,
no, not on the list. But it's all right. But I think as it's free to play, it's kind of like I think it's really cool. But I'd be all right with it being cut at this point. Cam, you're the one that put it there.
Yeah, I mean, I've sunk a lot of hours into it, and I've really enjoyed it. But it's not as if it's like a big, story-driven experience compared to other games like, dare I say, Cyberpunk or The Last of Us sort of thing. But it is an enjoyable game. The different builds that you can have, and obviously the way it's always quite relevant is because obviously it appears in a lot of videos that pop up on YouTube of like stick shots and stuff like that. So it's enjoyable, and I think you should stay on to the next round.
I think Dexter's got an opinion as well, by the way, Cam. Did you ask him what he thinks about Warzone?
I would love to ask him what he thinks about Dexter, what do you think about Call of Duty? Yeah, he says yeah.
They didn't say anything.
we heard nothing.
He said, oh yeah. Didn't you, buddy? Yeah,
lies and slander. Lies and slander. He's trying to use his child to keep the point. Oh, it's a terrible strategy.
If you want to put it through, can you honestly see that winning as a
No, it's not doing enough. It's not. I mean, it's building on Modern Warfare. Is what it was. It built on that engine. Where it was at. It blew out that experience into a battle royale. So I think really what we're talking about is, to me, would be Modern Warfare being the pinnacle of modern Call of Duty games, and I think that's where Warzone's come from. So
I think Warzone is.
It just feels like a reactive release. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, they had to do their own one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They saw where the market was going, and they had to make one for themselves, and I guess it's done well. But it doesn't inspire. Oh, that is the best game I've played this year.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, so I mean, the way I really think of it is like. I only really put it on there because technically it came out in 2020, but it's an addition to the 2019 Call of Duty game. So should it really be on the list?
Well, yeah. If you want to disqualify it, then fine.
Well, I've just cut it, so it's cut.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's my kind of 2 cents about it. Yeah.
What's
Cam, it's your pick.
Cam?
Come on, ruin someone else's day. Get revenge.
God. What else did Ben choose?
Or on there because of me. Yeah.
Let's think.
Let's look at we've got a list for just to let people peek behind the curtain. We've got a list of which ones we've all played as well, and there's quite a lot there, Cam, that only Ben has played. So.
The other one, funny enough, is I'm actually going to choose another one that I have only I have played, and that is Valorant. Actually,
you can pick your own pick to get cut in the first round.
I am. Compared to a lot of the other games that we have on our list and everything, I'm doing the noble sacrifice here and choosing my own games.
Falls on his own sword. I love it.
Seppuku with games.
It's a fun game. You know, during this came out and was really prominent in my 2020. This is like during the first couple of months of our very first lockdown in the UK. At that time, I had my work laptop. It was steady work I was doing, working up away from the family at that point. But it was quiet between a lot of customers on my laptop. And my friend said, "Hey, there's a new game that's come out currently. It's free to play. Do you want to give it a go? Download it?" I was like, "Yeah." So what's it about? And he said it's kind of like a CS:GO, Overwatch style, FPS plant the bomb kind of game. And I enjoyed it. And it's come quite far from when I first got it. But the thing is that, again, it's one of those games when you compare it to something, heart-beatingly insane as like Doom Eternal, for example. I never really had like the huge adrenaline rushes of those sort of games, And
is it there just because you played it then, rather than it being standout?
It's one of those as I was making my choices for the list, I thought about games that I really enjoyed from 2020, and that's one of the major ones I played from 2020. Yeah, you're right. But I compare it to the other games that you guys have had, a chance to have a go at. I'm like, I might just sink back into the chair here and imagine that one didn't exist.
I know nothing about it. I couldn't even tell you what kind of free-to-play shooter it was. I mean, I get the impression, like from what you described, so it's character-based a little bit, but also tactical. If you combined Overwatch and CS:GO, it seems like an interesting mix. And the fact that it's by Riot was quite surprising. When I was looking into it, I was like, I didn't even realize it was a Riot game. In another year of quite a lot of these free-to-play shooters appearing, it just completely passed me by. I didn't even notice it, really. So I heard the name, but...
Got to say, that is a clever strategy to put in a game that you then eliminate yourself to buy goodwill for further on in
political picking. It's very
not everything has political machinations behind it. This may very well do, but not everything does.
So that's gone, because there's nobody to defend it except the person that picked it to go. So, Robula, what's your next on the list?
I'm going to pick Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Oh my lord!
For one specific reason, right? It's a beautiful game, and what it does beautifully. It is an art piece, right? It's not a video game, it is a piece of art, right? 100%, not even like trying to fight on that point. It's reasonably one-dimensional.
Richard, see how he complimented it, but at the same time criticized it by calling it an art piece. And that was really interesting, like saying there wasn't a lot of gameplay to it. Oh my lord, there's so much game in Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Well, I'm not saying there wasn't gameplay.
Sorry, Rich?
I think you're saying that a video game is less than art.
No. That is not what I'm turning around and saying.
Did you play it, Rob? I'm only asking because I think it was our next Game Pass Club.
It's our Game Pass Club game. Not as of yet, no. I understand that there is a lot of gameplay there. I'm not saying there's not gameplay, but the aesthetics and the atmosphere and the experience are clearly what's a bigger focus than replayability, the same depth of something like Ghost of Tsushima or Cyberpunk or Doom. It doesn't have that gravitas. Again, this is in no particular order. I would put this at 11th out of our top 10, high up there, but not quite.
I think there's surprisingly a large amount of gameplay. I think it actually builds upon the first game quite a lot in its mechanics. There's more complexity here than in the original. It is. I agree. What you also said about it being gorgeous. Yeah. Sorry.
How much have you played of it?
Me, a few hours. Not a huge amount. I'm definitely not like deep into it, but enough to be like, I actually find it, one of the things I like about it, it feels a little bit more accessible than the first game. Like they've actually shaved off some of those issues that would pushed you away from the first game, which is why I didn't connect with it. And it's a little bit more user friendly. It's also everything Rob said, which is gorgeous work of art, stunning visuals, like an art. And some of the stuff is a little bit rote. I don't like the soundtrack. I find it very on the nose and like, oh, Danny Elfman. It's one of those soundtracks. But it just feels like it's not trying to do anything fresh with it. But the game, I actually really quite like the game. I mean, it wouldn't be one of my top 12s. I tell you that, like for the next round. However, I can see why somebody might argue for it to go further. Richard,
I finished it and I think it has the chops to go further. I think it builds on the first game. The first game, everyone knows for that intro where a lot of people cried over it. It really gets you in record time.
Nope.
And the sequel doesn't quite do that, but it does build to it towards the end and really finishes on that crescendo. And I thought, yes, it got there. And talking about the gameplay experience, it's much richer than you've implied there, Rob. So I don't think the backgrounds are just something nice to look at. What's clever in this sequel is that they've made the environment something that you invest time and effort in. So there's a particular area that you go back to. It's like a hub world. And this isn't new by any stretch of the imagination. It's a fairly common thing in video games. But you can upgrade, augment, and build this area into something other than what it begins as. And you feel invested in it. And I think the way that that's built as the core of a Metroidvania experience really ties in well. And because it's so beautiful, and I like the soundtrack's so lush. And because it builds on that emotional path that it starts off low key compared to the first one, but just builds up and up and up until the end, and you think perfect finish. I think it does deserve to be on the list.
Yeah, I think an emotional impact is more effective when it's earned. So I was making a joke about Rob being heartless when that opening to the first game didn't have an effect on him.
I've never played the first game. That's why I've no idea. I've no idea what happens.
However, it had an effect to me. It did affect me because they did a great job. It basically did like a short film that led to a conclusion before you even really started playing the game, which was really fucking like, oh my god. However, it was right in that first hour. So when you have that emotion at the end, it's going to have a lot more resonance than it would at the beginning, just from a narrative perspective. So I'm glad they shifted that around. That's quite smart. I think it stays on the list for now.
Cool. I'm starting to see the slight issue with this.
No, I'm going to pick one. My next pick, I think, is a dead easy cut. So I'm going to pick one of my own ones. I'm going to do a Cameron here. I'm going to pick one of mine's, and I'm going to put Carrion for the block.
Shut up.
I think really interesting that you're that passionate about it. I mean, I really like this game. I completed this game. However, it's not exactly like if you want to compare like for like Metroidvania to Metroidvania. I mean, Carrion doesn't sit anywhere near Ori and Will of the Wisps. If you want it to move forward, like if you're gonna have one or the other, for example, you're gonna pick Ori. You're not gonna pick Carrion. I think Carrion's, this is my kind of game. I absolutely love the concept of being the monster, of the kind of John Carpenter Thing-esque inspiration. I had issues with the controls. I think it feels quite mushy, the actual mobility in this game, and it's a bit too kind of overly fluid. Where you compare it to Ori, which is very specific in its controls and very accuracy driven. Carrion feels almost too far in the other direction. It's also got a fairly woolly selection of powers, which aren't always very well explained as to when they should be used. It has kind of issues with understanding the maps when it comes to going back through and redoing levels and going back to try and find other areas to open up. So it's not. It doesn't convey the kind of the important parts of Metroidvania games. Other games that fall into that thing will come to mind as like Dead Cells and stuff, which you always kind of know where you've got to go and what you've got to do and how you can get there. Whereas Carrion, it just feels a bit woolly at all times. Love the aesthetic, love the vibe, love everything about that. But as a game, it falls down just a little. I was really looking forward to it, like really excited about this game. And then I was like, oh, it's good, but it's not in my top 12, as it were.
So I have to agree with you actually, because I have managed to, in the last couple of weeks, play a bit of Carrion since it's on the Game Pass. One major thing that is missing, I feel like, compared to the other games, it's a map. I get lost so much in that game, and I don't know how I proceed in some places as well. Just something simple like a map could have improved my experience.
Yeah,
I had that.
I had that thing where I'd get a power up, and then I'd have to kind of basically go everywhere I'd already been and just test where I could use that power up to find out where I could then go. It was really tedious. It kind of killed the momentum. And as this awesome monster, you just want to feel like you're always getting more powerful and always gonna keep pushing forwards. And it just stopped that momentum and that sort of excitement. And that's what really took the wind out of my sails. And that Richard's got a counterpoint.
I have got a counterpoint. I'm surprised that you've taken that view on Carrion. I think first thing I want to say on Carrion is that I really like it for some of the same reasons that I like Last of Us Part 2. And it does that switcheroo with the narrative and the who's the hero sort of position that it puts you in. Because you are an anti-hero. You're a monster. You're killing people just because they're there.
It's not a very meaty game compared to the others.
Well, to be honest, it doesn't exactly give you the option.
It literally is meaty.
It doesn't give you the option to be a good monster because you're being fired upon by the security forces as soon as you appear.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should feel bad about it, but at the same time, you're just this malevolent beast. Not even malevolent because there's no morality to it. You just exist,
consume,
and you eat stuff that's in your way. I love that aspect of it.
How can there be
as much as I like Ori, it is a knife edge as to which one I'd choose.
Holy shit! Well, I'll tell you what. If you pick Carrion now, and we'll cut Ori.
Yeah, one or the other, Richard. One or the other.
I'm not saying necessarily but I'd be curious to see. Would you be willing to pick Carrion as the hill to die on, as it were, and sacrifice?
I don't know. It's tough because I recognise that there are problems with it. So the map is a big one. But in my experience, only insofar as going back and finding the pickups, which is obviously something that I do because I'm a nerd. But just
we all are.
For a Metroidvania, it's not particularly complex actually, and it does a reasonably good job, I thought, of guiding you through where you need to go and signposting what you need to do with the powers that you've got. And they are clever. So you need to change your size depending on the circumstance. Make yourself smaller to fit in smaller gaps. You can shed part of your flesh and store it elsewhere to sort of subsume into yourself again later. I thought that stuff was really creative and clever. And control-wise, I just thought it felt fantastic. Just the way that this muscular blob slovenly collapses through tunnels and drops and reaches out with its viscous
appendages.
It's just grim, and it feels like you're controlling what it's supposed to represent. The control feels right for what it is. I thought
sort of like slightly inconsistent and woolly.
It just feels like a really heavy muscular mass.
I mean, there were times when I was like, I want to get over there, and my tentacle would come out and take me over there instead because it just didn't recognize the input, and it'd be like, all right, I mean, I kind of still get where I want to go, but then I go around the houses to get there, and it just felt inconsistent and stuff.
It's not 100% precise, but then it didn't feel like you couldn't do what you wanted to do.
Compared to Ori, though, where every input is everything you do is accuracy. Everything you do is precision in Ori, right? Whereas this is the opposite. Like when it comes to it, it's more like experiential. Yeah. It's more about, like you said, trying to convey mass and lumbering entity. I don't
think you can criticize it for not having the grace of Ori.
I think
a big muscular blob.
I do think that the biggest issue is the mapping and the understanding of the environments. And I think when you compare it to a game like Axiom Verge, or you compare it to games to like even the poorly done mapping Control, which has got a lot of Metroidvania elements to it as a game, that's still easier to get around than it is in Carrion. And I mean, like that really hurts the experience of knowing where you are, because let's be honest, the pixel art style as well, a lot of environments sort of blend together. They don't look that distinct. They it's quite hard to sometimes get an understanding of where you are in relation to where you need to be. And I think that's the biggest problem in a Metroidvania game. If you don't nail that, you just create frustration.
Yeah, I just think the core gameplay of it, the power that it gives you to just...
I thought that'd be such an easy cut.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
I'm noticing that we may have made errors on how long we think this is going to take to cut us down.
It's going to go a bit longer. It's going to go a bit longer.
Okay.
All right, well, that's staying on the list, I guess, for now. We can't reach a consensus, so...
If all three of you think it should be cut, I mean, fair enough. I've said my piece on it. I think it's great. So anyone that's listening to this that hasn't played it, these guys are dickheads, honestly. Play it.
It's great. Oh, I fucking loved it. You know, I didn't say I hated the game. I just don't think it makes 12 top 12. It's got too many issues for top 12.
Anything that we've been saying about these games and reasons to cut them from this list is nothing to do with them being a bad game, apart from FIFA. You know, they're all great games. It's just that some of them are less great than others.
It's your pick, Rich.
Sorry, is it me next?
Indeed.
So Carrion's gone.
Yes.
Okay. I think I'm going to ask you, Ben, to justify Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. So I think played it, but
yeah,
me and Rob on that one. I think. Did you ever get around to playing it, Rob?
No, I never got around to buying it. Unfortunately,
never actually got around to buying it. That's the only time Rob plays games if I buy them for him. But that's fine.
Then where's Iron Harvest on this list? Oh, I knew it wasn't worthy of Game of the Year.
Saying that, mate, I bought him. Tesla Force isn't coming off because man, we love that game. But anyway, right, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. I really love the vibe of Rebel Galaxy. I really love the universe of Rebel Galaxy. I really loved everything they did about the first game. The problem, I guess, is that I still don't think the transition to behind the ship conventional 3D space shooter over the first game, which was the 2D plane kind of capital ship game, was the best move. I think that first game is so unique in its style and control and everything about it, whereas the sequel here, I still love the universe. I still love it's a very good one of these games. Like think of Elite or whatever if you need a reference point. However, I just don't think it stood out as strongly as that first game. So to be fair, I'm the only one with this on the list. I have issues with kind of the fundamentals of the game, even though what it does is a very good example of that. It can go.
Yes. See, some of these will be quicker.
I mean, did Rebel Galaxy Outlaw actually come out in 2019 anyway?
On PC, but if it came out on console, it can be on this list.
But we're cutting it, so let's move on.
Yes.
Cameron, you're up next.
Let's have a think. I probably because I mean I haven't played it. I have played plenty of versions of it, but I would probably go with Tetris Effect. Connected.
No.
Ooh.
Really?
I mean,
okay.
If we're allowing 2019 games on this list, a game from 1984 is allowed on this list. Is that how it goes? Is that how it goes?
Okay, Cameron raises a decent enough point there.
Yeah.
Would you like some aloe vera for that burn there, Ben?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, Tetris Effect Connected. It's a bit of a cheat because it's basically Tetris Effect, which is the game, the PSVR, PS4 game from possibly 2 years ago. So 2018, I want to say. It's basically that game with multiplayer. Released for a timed exclusive on the Xbox platform to coincide with the launch of the Xbox Series X and S. And it is probably the best Tetris. No, it is the best Tetris game ever made, which
Tetris
is
Battle
Tetris
Royale.
Effect. No, it's this.
Tetris 99?
Which is it's this. It was also yesterday playing another. I played Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 over the weekend, and that's also really good. So, I mean, I just love Tetris. But this is a great example of Tetris. It's the combination of the music, the visuals, and now the multiplayer. And I played a lot of this multiplayer over Christmas. It's kind of 1v1. There's quite a few different types of multiplayer mode in this as well, where you like work together and do boss fights, and it's bizarre some of the multiplayer in this game. But I personally just like head to head Tetris is, I find, brilliantly competitive because you have to be accurate, you have to make quick decisions. It's exciting, the music's going, the sound, the lights are flashing, and it's just like this is a proper competitive experience. I really like this game a lot, and the fact that it's on Game Pass is brilliant because it just means anybody with that can play it, which means the multiplayer base is really, really good and really strong. Never takes any time to match up into a game. But yeah, it's still Tetris Effect.
It doesn't feel like it's moved on too much from Tetris Effect itself, though.
They put multiplayer in. That's it. That's all they've done.
I don't think that's worthy of Game of the Year.
If that makes it worthy, then you put that in comparison to like Call of Duty Warzone that we've just taken off the list, which is just a free-to-play multiplayer game version of the multiplayer that you get on Call of Duty. So does adding multiplayer suddenly make it a Game of the Year edition?
How can Tetris compare to something like Valhalla or Ghost of Tsushima? It can't.
I mean, Tetris is one of the greatest games ever made. It's probably in my top 5 games of all time.
Well, that's great. That can be Game of the Year of 1984, Ben.
It's not the same game. It's not the same.
It's not. I mean,
shut up, Richard.
I love Tetris Effect because it was the first game I played on the Series X. So I love the thing. It's beautiful. I played it in the dark. It was amazing. It does not deserve to be on this list.
Richard, anything? Any backup here on this one?
I think because the vast majority of it is just exactly the same as Tetris Effect. It's really an updated title. It's not a new game. I think it should be taken off the list. Although I say it with regret.
Yeah, me too. I do see where everybody's coming from, and I think Cameron's comparison to Warzone, very smart, very very on point there. So yeah, I think for that quality argument alone, Tetris Effect is cut. All right, that hurts.
Richard, which one of us is in politics, Richard? If you need a running mate,
Rob, I think you're up.
Yeah.
It's getting harder now, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not, because this is where the dichotomy between everyone's list is going to become starkly evident. Because there are games that I wouldn't even have anywhere near this list that are still on there. One of the games is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 by Vicarious Visions. I know it's a remaster. By the sounds of it, it's a very well done remaster. It is also a game from what year was it originally released?
Someone in the 90s, I would assume.
Exactly. So not Game of the Year 2020. It's a remaster.
I don't know about this.
There are no other remasters on this list.
Richard bought it for me for Christmas, actually, very kindly of him. And I haven't played as much as I'd like. I have played enough to go, oh, damn. This ain't just no HD upscale. This is from the ground up, probably the greatest skateboarding game ever made. Now, the problem here, guys, is Rob and Cam, I don't know if you had that moment growing up. If you're too young to have been playing games when skateboarding games were the shit. Where it didn't matter if you skateboarded yourself, but everyone was playing them, and they were the best thing you could play. Now, did you ever have that connection to Tony Hawk?
So I played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 at a friend's house, and I came this close to
not during lockdown, I hope.
No, this is actually just. I think it was that period in between. I think. But basically, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, 2, and like Underground. I've played all the Tony Hawk's games. I was an avid skateboarder in my teens, myself. Which probably makes me leaps and bounds cooler than all three of you.
I was too. I did my time on the board. Thank you very much.
Me too.
But yeah, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. These were like the first kind of like PlayStation games.
We're all cooler than Rob.
I think I'm the cool one because I chose not to ride around on a piece of wood strapped to some wheels. Anyway.
Admittedly, the man is pretty cool enough to have a sword right behind him. So
that is true. Good point.
Badass.
He's brought it back. Yeah. He's brought it back.
Pro Skater 1 and 2, those were like the first PlayStation games that we really had in my house. I've said numerous times how I used to play a lot of video games with my two older brothers, my sister. A lot of them used to be on PC, but when we finally got console, Tony Hawk's was a go-to. And not just because they've been remastered, but they really took me back to my childhood, but they really influenced my style of music as well. They had tracks from like the Distillers and the Ramones and stuff on there, and that is my music.
They introduced a lot of that music to people that never would have come across it and got people into that music. Yeah, absolutely. And for that, they are super important as well. Yeah, very, very good point.
So,
Wipeout did that for me.
Nice.
See, for me, I played the Pro Skater games when I was younger. They bored me.
You just don't get it. You're not cool enough. That's fine.
I'm too cool for it.
Too cool. So that's great. So Cameron gets it. So Cameron, would you see this go as well?
It is a reskin though, isn't it? It's a very good one, but it is a reskin of the.
It's a bit more than that.
Reskin and rebuild and sharpen up.
So beyond that, they've brought in mechanics from later Tony Hawk games. So there are certain elements of the skating that were really good for usability to do with coming off the board and being able to move between tricks. I believe the revert's been added in, which was later addition. So there are elements that were only available in later Tony Hawk's games that have been brought into Tony Hawk's 1 and 2, which is pretty cool actually. Which also, is making them more accessible. Just
as a counterpoint to that, so there's no actual innovation of new tech in the game. It's other ideas from other old games that they're putting into that one.
Yeah, but what else could you? I mean, it's skateboarding. There's not like, now we get lasers. It's
so
not
you
like
admit that the game isn't as deep as others on this list, then?
It's so deep. The trick lists are incredible. There's so many things you can do, and the levels. These were the best skating levels.
You've just said yourself. There's only so much things that there's only so much they can bring in.
He's good at this.
I think it's the difference between what would a new Tony Hawk's game look like.
They tried that. You had a plastic board to stand on, and it was shit.
No, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest,
this is a reskin of a game that came out in the 90s with ideas for other games.
If we are going to really
into it, that also came out in the 90s.
You're not wrong.
Is this basically a similar argument that we're having right now to FIFA 21?
Basically, yes. Amazing skateboarding game, not game of the year.
And I will say yes. I will agree with you. As much as it really did take me back to my childhood, and I loved the game, and I played quite a long time. Game of the year, no. I say no.
All right, Richard. I mean, you're the only other one that would fight this, like me, I guess, because you have that love for it.
I haven't played it, and I do want to play it, but I just think.
I think if you played it, you'd be fighting it.
By virtue of what it is, I don't think it should be on the list.
Nope.
Just feels a bit unfair to. Other things. Obviously, there's a lot of work gone into it, and they've got a lot of credibility for having done such a great job on it, from what I've heard. It is people that have played it in the 90s and thought, yes, I really want to go back to that feeling, which I didn't have. So I suppose my perspective is a bit more objective, hopefully, that it's not really a new game. Does it deserve its place alongside the other things on this list? I don't think it's fair.
I think arguing the argument for it's not really a new game against remasters, remakes, or iterative additions, it doesn't hold up anymore because the nature of the industry has inherently changed. Remakes, remasters, yearly updates, free to play expansions, they're all valid in my mind because they're all gaming experiences within themselves. So I don't think that's a reason to cut it. However, I think you could argue that it doesn't do enough to differentiate itself from the
It's not a good enough argument in itself. I mean, we've defended Resident Evil 2's remake as part of
I believe that came up quite previously. When we did that year, that came up high as well. Yeah, we got that one high.
I think we really liked that. But the difference with that is what the experience brings with that new graphical fidelity and what they did on that title changes the experience. Tony Hawk's is a skateboarding game. The graphics might be better, but it still feels like the same game because what you're getting out of it is the mechanics, which really haven't changed. So I think, however they've updated it, it doesn't add as much weight as it would to something like Resident Evil.
Yeah, I think Resident Evil is more than just a graphical twist. It completely changes how you play the game. So I mean that is it goes from fixed point isometric view to third person.
Yeah.
So that is inherently a different experience. So whereas Tony Hawk is still the same third person skateboarding game. Okay, cut. Good arguments. I'm a little bit hurt. I'm going to pick a pretty contentious one here, guys.
Oh God, here we go again.
This could be the last one, but let's see where people go. This is another one of my picks. Another one I put on the list.
Valhalla.
Star Wars Squadrons.
Oh,
I'm going to agree with you on that one. It's a brilliant game for what it does, but it's not. It doesn't have the chops to go up against things like Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and
I think. I mean, it's a fantastic experiment. Like it was this multiplayer focused. There is a single player in there, but there's a multiplayer focused game that basically EA had no confidence in. The developer basically seemed to have no confidence in. It had no post-release plans. It kind of came out of nowhere, little fanfare. Came out a budget price. and turned out to be one of the best Star Wars games we've had from EA. But interestingly, I think what we now see is the reason EA might not have had any confidence in it is because they probably knew they were losing the exclusivity deal anyway to Star Wars games, and therefore weren't going to put marketing behind something they were about to lose out on. And now we know about Ubisoft getting games, and all kinds of other developers are going to be making Star Wars games. So there was politics and money behind this, but anyway. And I think it really surprised me. However, does it do anything different to what I experienced with X-Wing versus TIE Fighter? Does it do anything to like mixing that with a bit of Rogue Squadron? Not really. I mean, it's still a fun experience. I've not played it as much as I'd like to. It didn't hold me as much as I thought it would.
I
ended up falling off. Yeah.
I bought it on the basis of all the feedback saying how fantastic it was, and that was probably what turned me off it, because it just didn't live up to that. I mean, it's good. It didn't feel like anything particularly new, did it?
No.
So
The thing is,
in a way,
now Battlefront 2's gone free to play on my PC on Epic. If I want to play a Star Wars game, that's the one I'm playing. So it's fallen down. It's amazing. It's just not good enough.
Anything to add, or is that an easy cut?
Yeah, I think it can be cut on the for me, just out of ignorance, really, because I've not played enough of it to justify it staying in. But that says something about the game, doesn't it? That I couldn't be bothered to go back after the first hour.
Cameron?
I haven't played it, unfortunately, so I can't really have too much of a major input in it. I mean, from what I gather, it's pretty much like the space battles you get in like Battlefront 2, pretty much. And as much as I enjoy those ones, don't know if I go out and I just buy a full-blown dogfighting version of space battles from Battlefront 2. That's me.
Yeah, I think we're at the end of round 1 here, guys, and we've got some interesting stuff left here. We've got a bunch of games that haven't come up for any attempted elimination. We've also got some which have had to fight to make it into round 2. Not that many of them, actually. I'm looking at this. Ori had to fight to stay. Cyberpunk had to fight to stay. Hey, calm down. But and Last of Us Part 2 had to have a little bit of a fight to stay, though I feel that was just me trolling Richard.
Yeah, it was.
But
oh, great! So we could have had Carrion.
no, we couldn't have had Carrion. So now we move into the Wheel of Fortune, or is it Misfortune round? I have a website here where I've now inputted these 12 names. It will randomly pick a name and then another name. And that will be our first matchup, and it's going to be interesting. Who knows what's going to come out of this? So are you guys ready?
Let's do this.
Oh,
let's go.
Right. The wheel has said, unlucky for this game. This is probably going to go Tesla Force versus Destiny 2 Beyond Light. Oh God, Rob, this is like picking our children.
Oh, this one hurts.
I'm just going to sit back and watch this. Great.
I'm going to pick Tesla Force to stay.
Yeah.
Oh, that was like no question. Over one of your favoritist fucking games of all time, you're going to pick Tesla Force.
Yes. Wow.
I believe you might have picked it when we were doing the video game first days. Didn't you say Destiny 2 was your favorite game of all time?
Yes. This is going to be an interesting one.
Unless
Tesla Force is now your favorite game of all time.
That's not how favourites work.
Let's
Ben,
not forget.
You know that.
Let's not forget that through the years, I think it was 2016 to 2019, when you had the Xbox One, that you played 30 days of Destiny 2 on the Xbox. And how many hours was it on the Steam version as well?
269 hours on the Steam version of Destiny 2.
That's a few more days, yeah.
Right. My point. Now, I'm going to go back and disagree with something Ben said before. The Beyond Light version of Destiny 2 heralded removal of game features and slimming down of the game experience.
Great point.
You can't reward them. I disagree with the DCV or Destiny Content Vault, where they're removing the content because they're going, all this stuff that you paid us money for, that we said was around forever, is actually now limited time.
So it's like a DLC removal.
Yes,
done here.
They had to do it. Bear in mind, the game client size was over 100 gigs in size, but that's laughable when you compare it to Call of Duty, where I think it's currently clocking in over 200, and people are just going, that's fine, don't care. You know, so
okay. Counterpoint. We've also got a new power.
Yes.
The first time we got a new
Yes.
power. We got some really nice. We got the return of an awesome location.
100%.
We got a brilliant new location, which is I think really cool. I really like Europa. We've got the seasons of content that are coming out this year are looking quite promising.
Yeah.
We're getting return of strikes.
One season.
Okay. We're getting strikes back that we fondly remember. Go on, Cam.
Which is content from before.
Just counterpoint. Why couldn't you have had that stuff and not removed DLC?
So it's a valid point, but I mean they were looking at numbers. They were looking at what players were doing, and they weren't going to those locations. They weren't experiencing those. Yeah, well, I don't know what you do, but you're weird. But they were looking at the numbers. It was numbers driven. Like honestly. So I do see what and you can't really counter that argument. It's like the fact that they're removing game, but it's a live game now, isn't it? And it's a free to play live game.
Yes.
So it's kind of like the whole model has changed from when we originally bought into it at retail. And that's no fault of ours. That's them moving. They're no longer with Activision. They're an independent company. They're changing the way they do things. So it's a little bit anti-consumer. Don't get me wrong. However, I kind of respect the boldness. I respect they are listening to the players' feedback about this, and it has been quite negative. And I imagine that we'll see changes. We'll see alterations to their plans.
What's going to happen is that they will just cycle everything back in.
Yeah,
that's what Bungie do. The community have hated on weapon sunsetting, so removing the viability of weapons for the player use that they may have ground hours for. They're then turning around going, no, you can't use that anymore because we have arbitrarily decided numbers don't update.
Let's flip this because experience kills were about positivity. So let's stop talking about the negative side of Destiny. Yes. So let's stop talking about the negativity of Destiny 2 and let's talk about why you like Tesla Force so much that you think it should beat Destiny 2 instead.
Precisely, because I've not heard much about Tesla Force, so I'm fascinated. I think that's your pick above Destiny 2.
The premise of the fact that you can play as Nikola Tesla, I think it's Marie Curie, I think. Yeah. Lovecraft and some other person who I can't remember who's a little bit unimportant.
Mary Shelley?
I don't know, possibly. You're fighting against arenas of Cthulhu demons to try and save the world with electrical weaponry.
It's just so much fun. So it's a top-down,
so fun.
twin-stick shooter, Richard. Top-down twin-stick shooter about managing hordes and hordes and hordes of just so many enemies on the screen. It looks incredible, X and S enhanced, runs beautifully, buttery smooth, lovely high-res textures. Its colourful palette. It's made by 10 Tons, and 10 Tons are kind of like the masters of this genre of game. And I've followed them ever since their first one, Crimson Land, back in the day. And they just keep developing and sort of enhancing these experiences by adding in extra levels to it and making it more roguelike, making it you're getting power-ups, it's run-based now, so there's like this element of coming back, getting better stuff, coming back, replaying, and you get a different experience every time and stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a very pure gaming experience. It's not like super ambitious and super expansive, but what it does incredibly well. And I reviewed it with Rob. Rob fell in love with it. I actually bought him a copy because he was so in love with it. I was like, mate, you got to play this then. I'll always defend Tesla Force. So it's hard for me because I also love Destiny 2. I mean, like the new X enhancements for that. The 4K 60 frame lock, it's buttery, it's beautiful, it's the best the game has ever felt. That was the other thing I was going to say right now about Beyond Light. It is the best the game has ever felt. But I
don't disagree with any of the good points. I know obviously we're meant to focus on positivity and stuff, but when you're comparing two games against each other, sometimes you have to talk about the things that aren't as positive in a game, because everything you said, Ben, was completely right. Destiny 2 is fucking amazing. I love it. I'm going to be playing it today when we're finished. But comparing the two, I think Tesla Force is more deserving of Game of the Year.
So we're going to cut Destiny 2. All right?
Yes!
Everybody happy with that? You guys have said nothing else, Richard and Cam, but...
For one, I haven't really had experience with Tesla Force, but again, it's one of those, Destiny 2 has been out for quite a while now, and it's just because of Beyond Light doesn't mean that it is a brand new game for 2020.
We're not using that argument. Not using that argument.
It's
not using that argument.
But
as an additional, but it's not. It doesn't stand up. I don't think as an argument.
I think removing content doesn't mean that
that's fair.
Makes it better.
Yeah, that's fair. Removing thing is a big issue. I think that's a fair negative. Richard just went a few times, and that was his argument.
Well, I said I'd sit back and watch you fight it out. I don't really have a dog in this fight.
No hills to die on here.
I haven't played Tesla Force. Destiny 2, Beyond Light. I played a bit of it with you guys.
Trying to get you in to play it more with us, and you just don't want to play, Rich. It's just.
Well, I tried. I've tried a few times, and it never pulls me fully in. So yeah, I can't say I'd be sorry to see it go out.
Gears Pop still too addictive for you?
I'm telling you, mate, that's where it's at.
Right then, let's roll the wheel. I've removed those two names from the wheel. So what does Tesla Force have to defend itself against? Oh boy, let's find out. And we have... Okay, this is Cameron. Ready to take the floor, Cameron. Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time by Toys for Bob.
Yes, it's Bob, not Bod, like you said at the beginning there, by the way.
I don't know.
Toys for Bod is an Ann Summers spin-off website.
Top 10 sentences we did not expect to hear today. Number 1.
You're talking to me. How can you not expect something weird like that? Crash Bandicoot 4, brilliant. I loved it. I played pretty much all the previous Crash Bandicoot games, including the remasters we had as well, of all 1, 2, and 3, done by Toys for Bob. 4 is a brand new game, and it does expand on the Crash's universe, and it feels like I'm taking back to my childhood. I love it. They've got quite a few new additions to like the powers and stuff you pick up throughout the game, so there are new interesting mechanics compared to, again, rehashing from previous games, for example. I loved my time with it as well, so much so that when I told my sister about it, she bought it for her Nintendo Switch. And she apparently plays it at least a couple of hours a day when she finishes work. So
I'm not sure how effective your marketing is as a reason to say this game beats Tesla Force. Just saying, Cam. Sorry, Buzz.
Unfortunately, I don't have any idea about Tesla Force, unfortunately.
So let me compare something. Tesla Force, Crash Bandicoot 4. Tesla Force, Crash Bandicoot 4. What the fuck is Crash Bandicoot even doing that's remotely interesting and fresh at number 4? I've got to ask. I've never cared about this series. I barely give any shits about any 3D platformer. Definitely not Crash Bandicoot. So to explain to me why Crash Bandicoot 4
just explain
has
why
anything
Crash
new
Bandicoot.
to add here, especially as you were the proponent of the argument of remakes and remasters shouldn't even make it through to round 2. So tell me why 4 should stay on this list right now.
It's not a remake and it's not a remaster.
I was about to say,
it's a brand new addition to the Crash Bandicoot universe.
I think that was Cameron's start. It's a new game.
But what's new about it? I've got to know what's new about it. How do they change up the 3D platforming action to make it new?
By that logic,
how do they make it not terrible? Because Crash Bandicoot was awful.
And this boy plays a lot of 3D platformers, so Richard knows what he's talking about.
And I really wanted to like Crash Bandicoot, but I fully bought into the hype when it came out on PlayStation originally, and even then, really wanted to like it, it was terrible. To be fair, the reviews for Crash Bandicoot 4 look really good. So presumably they've done something, but what have they done?
What game can you say has changed the entire concept of multi-platform games like that?
No. What's it added?
They have brought in things like co-op, competitive multiplayer, and local co-op as well, where you play against other players in time trials, and like checkpoint races and stuff as well. For the first time that I can think of, except from Crash Team Racing, really. And there's different alternate timeline levels where you can play different characters as well. So instead of you're playing Crash all the time, you can play as like the eponymous villain, Neo Cortex. Can
you play as Mary Shelley with Cthulhu demons?
With electric jetpacks? I'm afraid not. I'm very sorry.
I think then we have a clear winner.
Oh, vicious. I'm trying to give... in all honesty, I'm trying to give Cameron here a chance because none of us are invested in this game at all.
No.
And it's like
No,
what I want to
I'm
hear from Cameron, if you can tell me what it is that makes this game beyond nostalgia, beyond your love of the franchise, what makes this game of the year contender? That's what I want to know.
I'm waiting to be convinced because the reviews, it was really well received. I just want to know why, because the Crash Bandicoot itself as a franchise is not something that I'm sold on. But
I think it's
there must be
because
something in it.
Crash
It's all of
Bandicoot as a
it. That's the
franchise
thing.
is wildly successful, and people do generally really, really enjoy that franchise. I don't get it myself. I'm not a fan, but it's
just one of those games that I feel like I can put on, and I don't have to worry about, such a what's the word? That's all games. Come on,
Cam, is it like putting on a comfy pair of slippers?
yeah, it's
Because that's the argument I used for FIFA 21, and you fuckers shot me down hard.
Yeah, but that's because this is the 4th game, not the 21st.
I think that means 21's higher than 4, so 21's better than 4. I'm confused.
And by that logic, it would be Cyberpunk 2077 is the best game because it's the 2077th game. So maybe we can't follow that one.
Unfortunately, the 2077 is a reference to how many bugs there are in the game.
Oh, that's a low number. That's a low number. I mean, no, I'm just not hearing anything. I'm hearing that. It's an
enjoyable game. It's an enjoyable game that brings about a lot of nostalgia, and that I can just put on and just not have to worry about going too hard or perfecting it in any way, shape, or form. It's a simple kind of mind numb and just I'm just gonna play a bit of Crash. I'm really enjoying this.
It's the same argument as I used for FIFA. You can't have it. You're not winning.
I'm gonna guess Ben and Rob want Tesla Force to go through.
Yes. Against Crash, yes. Sorry, Cam.
I've got the deciding vote then, I guess, haven't I?
We're not doing votes, but
no,
yes.
but I could really put the nail in the coffin and say I support Tesla Force.
You could also use the nail gun and shoot Crash in the back of the head into his own grave.
I mean, we've got machine guns and Tesla rifles and all kinds of things we could shoot Crash from Tesla Force. Just saying,
I think that's what I'm going to do. Let's put Tesla Force in.
Hooray! 2 wins for TF, man. This is good. I'm going to start tracking. Let's track the wins as well. We did that last time as well. So 2 wins. Put that in there. Right. So that means that one is out at number 11.
Did well, though. At least none of you guys brought it up before that. So I'm happy with that.
Okay.
All right. What's next, Ben?
Spin the wheel. I'll make sure I've removed it. Yes, I have. We have got... Okay. One of the big boys. Now.
Oh no!
One of Richard's big boys coming in. It's Yakuza Like a Dragon by Ryo Gotoku Studio.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I will argue for this as well. I think Richard as well. It's a great game.
Sweet.
Ooh,
I haven't played it, but it just in my head I read it like it's Madonna. Can't even know. Was it
Like a virgin?
Like a dragon.
Set on fire for the very first time.
Anyway, so why is Tesla Force better?
It's not.
Shall I start on this, Ben?
Yeah, go on, Richard, man. I think you've done more than me.
Yakuza. There's loads of these games, isn't there? So
not like this.
No, not like this.
Not like this.
Just before that argument comes in, Yakuza Like a Dragon is regarded as a really good entry into the series, I think. And it's certainly my first proper go at a Yakuza game. It's not like the others, so it's got turn-based combat. And it feels, as a Sega game, I'll tell you what this felt like. It felt like if Shenmue was good. And
yeah, Yakuza's always been... People have always said that about Yakuza. It's like good Shenmue. Yeah, ever since the first one, yeah.
But... I've not experienced it before, so this is the first one I've played properly, and I thought, wow, this really is like a good Shenmue, because we played Shenmue 3 last year, and we're reminded just how terrible that game was. Well, yeah.
You put yourself through that, yes.
Yeah, just how terrible that series really is. Even was back then, really. It wasn't ever that great, was it?
No.
But I am really enjoying Yakuza. I'm still nowhere near the end of it. I've still got loads to do. But the tone of it is very, very 90s Sega. It's funny. It's weird.
So weird.
it's bright and enjoyable. What?
Do you want me to say some stuff? I'll jump
Yeah,
in. I'm with you on this.
it's difficult to know where to start, isn't it?
It's interesting that this is your first Yakuza and you've been looking for a good Shenmue, because you should definitely play the main series, because they are more like, because they're third person action, whereas this is turn-based JRPG combat, right? So this is actually further removed from Shenmue, whereas the others are like, I've not played 1, 2, 3, but I played a bunch of Zero when it came to Game Pass, and it's brilliant. It's got like Virtua Fighter combat, but like turned up to 11, a far more interesting universe, like crazy. And this one takes that even further. This is the thing with Yakuza. I think people are put off. They hear like Japanese crime and they get all dark and it's going to be heavy. It's not. It's absolutely fucking mental. And it's just the most like over the top, colorful, riotous, weird stuff. I don't want to spoil specific moments really from Like a Dragon, but it's just anarchic. It's like a fever dream of Japanese 90s culture smashed into like Final Fantasy combat. It's the weirdest stuff. It's completely unique. I've never played a game like it. It's
weird.
Just incredible.
I've explained it badly. You've done a better job than me. But let's just go back to what the game is. So you're a guy who's part of a Yakuza family. You go to prison, taking the rap for something somebody else did. There was a murder. You do them family a favor and go to prison. When you get out, that family is not there for you. And the game is about you building up from that. You're basically homeless. You've got this experience as a reputable Yakuza, and you want to build your prestige back up in the community. And that manifests itself through fighting local villains, defending people in the community. You raise your level, you raise your status, you enlist people into your gang. They fight with you, and there's all sorts of missions and side missions around the universe that you're in, which range from standard fare for a Yakuza, like going to defeat people who are extorting the locals from a rival gang or something like that, to finding out who's weeing in the river for no reason. So there's all sorts of these weird comedic missions. And round every corner, anything could happen. And it's just fascinating to play through. And the characters are so well played as well. It's just really good fun seeing how these characters relate to each other and the story progresses.
Yeah.
Also
karaoke. Just saying.
Karaoke's great, yeah.
Oh, karaoke's so well done in this.
And just building the relationships between all the different characters, which is obviously a leveling thing as well. So the more.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
People. What?
Do you know what it reminds me of, Richard? This is Japanese Saints Row.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
This is Japanese Saints Row. This is that mad cartoon crime, but instead of through kind of the Western lens, it's through a Eastern lens. And it's basically Japanese Saints Row. And that's why I like it, because I love the tone of those games. They're so stupid, but that's why this is so brilliant.
I don't, but I think because it's more of an Eastern influence, it feels purer in a way.
Kind of but yeah, because I guess a lot of those later Saints Row are actually kind of like lampooning Japanese culture, aren't they? And whereas this is the real thing, but through this wacky mirror, which is just brilliant.
There's a sexual element to Saints Row. It feels a bit sordid, doesn't it? And
there's some stuff in Yakuza which is a bit sexual.
I think that's also the Western lens.
Maybe I don't know. I think generally it feels quite clean. And fun. But even down to the I just wanted to mention the combat quickly, because it might sound that's like a negative thing, that it's a turn-based RPG. The combat does not feel turn-based. It feels really action-packed, even though all you're really doing is selecting which move happens next. The way that characters interact with the scenery dynamically. So if there's an object in the way, they might pick it up and use that to start hammering the enemies with. Or they'll start vaulting over fences and stuff like that. And depending on the positioning of your allies and all the other enemies, dictates how the fight plays out. And I thought that was really good fun to watch. It's not a case of they're all lined up, one of them stabs forward.
Shuffle forward, shuffle backwards. Not quite like that.
Slash.
And because the attacks are so crazy, like using chef's implements if you've got a chef character, and all sorts of weird attacks.
It's so good.
it's just bizarre, isn't it? It's fun.
It's a very bizarre is a good word actually. Bizarre is a really good word for this. It's very bizarre. Like the whole game is super bizarre. Like it's great. I love it. And I mean, look, this is what we knew would happen, Rob. Right? So small indie studio game up against, I'd say still indie studio. Like Yakuza's indie, but at the same time bigger, established franchise. Bigger production, but a lot more money, obviously, a lot more resources. And I think at this point, Tesla Force has to go bye-bye because it's just not going to hold on any longer. I think it's like it can't really hang in this crowd. And I think Yakuza, this is the best because I think the problem that puts a lot of people off the Yakuza is that it's just like 6 or 7 games long now, right? The main series. And this is you can jump in, new character, similar setting, yes, but different time period, different characters, different story. Here's your way in, finally. And I do think Zero, Richard, you need to go and play Yakuza 0 and go. And now that they've got Game Pass, Game Pass has got 1, 2, and 3. I think has the Kawaii editions, the remasters on there now as well. So it's definitely worth checking out. You'd love it. I think you'd absolutely love it. But this is hands down one of the most unique games I've played in a long time on Xbox. And
I will bow down to
amazing.
the democracy on this one because the Yakuza games do not interest me in the slightest.
I know what you're saying, but you'd love it. I reckon everybody would enjoy it.
Honestly, I used to feel that way.
Yeah.
I played a little bit of Zero on Game Pass. I thought I could.
I've seen video reviews. I've seen gameplay of it. It just doesn't grab me. It's why
Same.
Saints Row is similar. Saints Row is fine.
Yeah, I've never got into Saints Row either, and I
games.
felt exactly the same as you about Yakuza. I thought it's not worth the investment. There's so many games, so much time to put into them. But Like a Dragon, it's worth a crack, honestly.
Maybe.
Cool.
Like a dragon.
Right, what's next, Ben?
Set on fire for
What's
the
Yakuza
very
going to have to
first
try and
time.
defend
I'm
itself
spinning
against?
the wheel. Spinning the wheel. Diddly, 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 diddly. Rich is going to have to choose between 2 of his babies. It's Ori and Will of the Wisps.
Versus Yakuza.
Ooh.
Yep.
Time to
So
get the
will the
popcorn.
wisps burn up from the dragon?
Oh God, that's tough, isn't it?
Feel like
Has
you kick
anyone
it
else
off.
got any feelings about it?
Yakuza.
I would pick Ori.
Personally, I would pick Ori as well, because when I think of... I think I said this possibly a little while ago, but when I think about Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I think about when people make arguments about how video games aren't art in this day and age, And this Ori would be like a prime example of that I would put to people and go, how the hell can you say that this is not a piece of art? Okay, the entire world around it is art. The story is beautiful. I can't go up to someone and show them Yakuza.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. This is the problem with it. This is what the thing is. You're pandering to those people because you're going to give them Ori because it's so pretty and painterly, and that makes it art, doesn't it? And it's like, fuck off. Yakuza is definitely art. It's definitely fucking art.
Every video game is a form of art.
Yeah,
I
that bugs me that people
I
will
didn't say
pick.
Yakuza wasn't art. I'm saying that I would choose Ori
You're
as a
pandering.
prime example.
Yeah, because you're pandering to their preconceptions of what art is. Where really what they need to do is redefine those conceptions because they're backwards and living in the past.
I think we found a touch point for Ben's anger here.
Richard's not in though. Richard sees where I'm coming from, and it's just like,
Yeah, I mean, to
Yakuza
me,
is just art. Yeah.
art is a side mission where a man gets kicked out of a bathhouse and you've got to get him to the department store before the bubbles disappear off his knob.
That's not art. That's stupidity.
Totally art. No, that's art. That's art.
That's not art. I'm sorry.
That's art,
no.
maybe. Have you ever seen Tracy Emin's bed, which was covered in like used condoms? I mean, that's art. So that can, Yakuza's silliness can be art. I'm sorry, definitely art. Like, come on.
Sorry,
Come on.
That's more like the art that Van Gogh did back in like the 1800s. Like, so it'll only be recognized as art in maybe 200 years. Okay.
God, I love Game of the Year because I love playing Devil's Advocate. It's so much fun. But
You just like sparking the arguments. That's what you like.
but it's true.
Stop triggering me.
This is a tricky one, and I can see both sides of it. Personally, I'm Yakuza because it's more my type of game, and I love how fresh it felt. I really like Ori. I think it's beautiful. However, there are elements of it that feel less inventive to me than Yakuza. Like the music, the gameplay, while very good, doesn't feel particularly fresh. Whereas I think Yakuza does stuff with open world and combat systems that does feel more fresh. But then again, I'm biased. I'm always going to pick an open world game over a 2D Metroidvania. Like, that's just my type of games.
I think I'm just going to point out that 3 of us have played Ori, 2 of us have played Yakuza.
That doesn't mean anything.
It means it's more attractive to a wider variety of people.
You only played it because it was Game Pass Club.
I haven't. Cam has.
Hey,
fair.
Well, all 4 of us did play Destiny 2. Okay.
Yes, indeed. But this is as close as we can get to a tiebreaker situation because.
Okay.
No, we hash it out. We hash it out. Like, we're gonna have debate. So
here we go.
Where are you, Sam? Richard? Yes, exactly. Where are you, Sam?
I can't justify this on any sort of empirical level, but just on gut feeling, I think Yakuza should go through.
Interesting. See, that's kind of where I feel, because it's like I can analytically break those games down. You analytically break them down into piles, and you're like, oh man, that does that so well, and that does that so well, and they're just even. Like, it's like
they're so different. You can't compare.
Yeah.
But where's my heart? And it just feels like.
And I think that says a lot, because you were very impacted by Ori. Because I think I even saw you tweeting about how amazing that was, the ending.
Great.
I think you really were shouting about it. Yeah. So
maybe
yet a foamy Japanese man wins.
Honestly, it's so good, so much fun, that game. Just
I hope, Rob,
every mission you think, what's gonna come from this one? It's great. And maybe that's what it is. I haven't finished it, so I've still got so many more experiences to come with it, and I know I'm gonna love it.
I think that's a fair point as well. Actually, experiences, right? Ori is a bit like you don't get as many different experiences, right? You get sadness, and you get adventure, and you get beauty, but I think you get more of a variety of experiences out of Yakuza. And I think that's a very good point. I think that's a very good point there. It's hitting more notes, not necessarily hitting any of those notes better or worse, but you get more. So, I mean, from a quantity perspective, you got a kilogram of experiences here with you, only 750 grams with Ori.
That's not always a good thing, and I'm sure
it's
we'll
definitely
come
not.
to that.
No, it's definitely not always a good thing.
So
what I would say to both Cameron and Rob, right, with the Yakuza, one of the best things that could come out of these discussions will be that you try stuff that you maybe wouldn't normally. And Yakuza is a series, not on Game Pass like a dragon, but Zero is, Rob, right? So I would say give it a shot, because you will be surprised, because it is not the game you think it will be. Like, honest to God, these are
we're not talking
the
about
gritty...
Yakuza 0.
No,
we're talking about Yakuza like
the franchise. Yes, no, the franchise
but
as a
we're
whole.
not talking about franchises either. In GOTY, we're talking about games.
Ben's making the general point that what we're discussing now is it's not to get a definitive best game of the year, because that's absurd. It's to get people thinking, oh, I didn't think about that. Maybe I should give that a try.
Except we will come up with a definitive best game of the year.
I was about to say, I've approached this specifically with the aim of coming up with a definitive game of the year. I've made my choice. It's obvious. I'm wearing my choice. So,
but we all know we're not all going to agree on it. It's bullshit at the end of the day, isn't it? So really, what we're here for is to promote. It's silly.
Well, what? By that logic, what's the point in carrying on, Richard? Well, what's the point in this process?
And how we get there is really important, because it will invite people to think about playing games that they wouldn't ordinarily have tried.
Okay, so let's do this, right? Who here has played both? I have. Richard has, and we're both going with gut on Yakuza.
Yeah.
Right, and I think. Yeah. I think we have to put a weight on that, don't we? Like, that has to be. I don't want to just tread on you guys, Cam, Rob, and if you've got arguments, make them. But at the same time,
neither. But I know if both copies of both games were in front of me right now, I would put Ori in my machine and throw Yakuza out the window.
Remind me not to send you any more free games, Jesus. Okay, out the window. Good to know. So,
were you going to send me a free copy of Yakuza? I don't think you were.
Maybe I'll keep an eye out for when it's on sale. Well, you never know. I've already got to buy Cameron Mass Effect. I've already promised to do that. Jesus Christ. Right. Yakuza goes forward with 2 wins.
What's the next contender?
Right. Let me just make a note of all this, and I will spin the wheel. Okay, that was a fight. That was more of a fight than I expected on that one, actually. And we're getting, thank you if you could put that number in there. Cheers. We are getting down to it's going to get interesting because we got some big top contenders left on the list now, right? So let us see what comes up against Yakuza for its third title defense. Oh boy. Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Oh my god. This is a fairly clear matchup, isn't it? Because they're both open world. They've both got loads and loads of content and all sorts of things you can experience, like you said. But this is where I think the comparison makes clear what a great job Yakuza does. Because I don't think Assassin's Creed, in this iteration or previously, does a very good job at all of filtering its content in a way that makes sense and is compelling to work through. It just feels like workmanship. You don't feel like the next thing is going to be...
Which was the last one you played? Did you play Odyssey?
The one before... No, what's the one?
Origins.
Origins.
So you've not played Odyssey or Valhalla?
No, but I have heard a lot of people talking about Valhalla.
Yeah,
and
I'm at about 50 hours in Valhalla now. I've done maybe 6 in Yakuza.
May 4 strike you down.
Let me tell you what I've heard, and you can counter it. So,
I mean, I'm the one that's
Valhalla
played it.
wins.
Okay. Go on.
You'll have more to say, so let me just get this out of the way quickly. So the criticisms I've heard of Valhalla: 1, lots and lots of bugs that break the immersion.
Nope.
Lots of issues around how missions play out on what the end state is at the end of a mission. So you might do something where you have to clear out a village and kill everybody, and then after that, everyone's back again because they need to be there for the story. And the narrative does not match the content that you are given, so it sort of breaks the immersion in the environment. Combat is boring and basically just about functional. Just doesn't sound very good to me, apart from it looking like it's really nice and like a sort of
weird shit you've heard. We've heard that.
Well,
any of that? Okay.
Boring.
Right. So where to start? Okay. What was the first point you said? Bugs. Yeah. Like day one for half a week, it had a few issues, like with some performance issues on the older hardware. Got patched pretty much straight away. Hot fixed out straight away. Have I experienced any bugs? So the big issue I had, which I talked about on the podcast this year, was I had an issue where if I used the quick resume, do you remember this, guys? I lost about 10 hours of play. I lost about 10 hours of gameplay. And I was super annoyed. I was able to replay it in about 2 hours by skipping all the dialogue. But I lost about 5 to 10 hours of gameplay because something happened with quick resume and it just removed all the saves. I've been manually saving as well. I'd had multiple manual saves and quick saves and they all disappeared. Don't know what happened there. Obviously, I can't trust quick resume with that game now. And that is, I will acknowledge that, super shit. Like, that is terrible. That is not, however, like a gameplay bug which affects actual gameplay. I've not really had any of them, but from a core perspective, that's garbage. But like, I don't know. I've not looked at Yakuza. Maybe Yakuza's had bugs. I really don't know.
Also, I'm going to point out, if we're going to use presence as bugs of a way to rule out games, Cyberpunk shouldn't be here.
Yeah, but it's the problem with open world games.
Whoever that goes against.
But the problem is with open world games is that they all have bugs. They all come out with bugs.
Every game.
I've never seen an open world game, especially, come out with instances of falling through the floor, or some weird floating character models, or some collision detection issues, or something. Because there's so much to fucking test in these games. There's always something wrong with them. So I don't think that writes anything out. I don't know enough about Yakuza. I certainly didn't play Yakuza like straight away at launch. I really don't know. Like I said, that bug I had with AC, super crap. Like, they need to fix that. But I feel like that's an issue. There's been issues with AC and quick resume since the beginning, so I don't know what's going on with that.
So what about the issue of the narrative, the dissonance between the narrative and what you're actually asked to do? So
I'm trying to think of the example. An example of
you've got to clear out villages and steal people's shoes or some shit like that, and then you've got to somehow be friends with everyone in the village after you've just ransacked it or something. Does that play out? Or
I have heard. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the same game, Richard?
But no, it sounds very Ubisoft.
2020. I guess to me, one of them would be if I went and did a raid in an abbey and killed all the guards in that raid, and then when I come back later, there are soldiers again, I guess would be the argument. But that's not narrative. It's just they reinforced the garrison. Like they all got killed, so more soldiers came back. So that would make sense within the world. So I guess it would also be really boring if you just killed everyone and you went around and cleared the map of all the bad guys and there were no more bad guys.
No,
why would you want to play that game?
I mean, naturally enemies will come back, but yeah, of course. But the way it's presented in this game, from what I've heard, is that it gives a story reason why you've got to clear them out. And then that isn't borne out by the gameplay experience where you've got to work with those people. And just the fact that you're
I don't know the reference, sadly. I'm not experienced that myself, at least not in a way that it stuck with me.
I don't know. I'm very prejudiced, I'll be honest. This is a Ubisoft game and I know what they're like from other games. This doesn't look like, from the feedback I've heard, this doesn't look like it's any different to what I've played previously.
You do raise a somewhat interesting question right now, because I'm playing Odyssey right now, which I'm loving, by the way. And I've just come to a point where I meet quite an important political person, but he's also like the leader of Athens. So if I wanted to destabilize the country, I need to attack and kill him. So if I haven't done it, because obviously he's
he's not. He won't. If you do it, he won't be a quest giver. If that's what you're asking.
That's what I was gonna say, because like he is a quest giver and he's an important thing. So that could ruin like my entire story from that point. So is that what you're kind of getting at, Richard? If
you killed him and he stayed there, that would be a huge issue. But I beat the shit out of obviously that doesn't happen.
It's more to do with the side stuff, I think. So Ubisoft games are well known for having sprawling maps full of side missions that you have to do, just for the sake of doing it, and that lends itself to inconsistencies with the core story of the game. And it just feels to me,
I haven't experienced it, Richard.
If this is like previous Ubisoft open world games, it just feels like there's a bunch of content there to do just because they've filled it up and they don't much care whether it fits in.
So the way
or tonally or in terms of pace of the game,
there is a lot less. They've listened about map sprawl of filler content, and in this, and you can completely ignore it. So it shows up as like a blue icon on your map and like a little blue thing on your heads up, and you can basically turn off all your heads up so you don't even see it. You can play these games far more immersionally now.
Is that what
do you mean?
Done?
No, I have them all on my screen, but it's like you don't have to engage with this stuff if you don't want to, and it's absolutely fine not to if you don't want to experience it.
You are typically not a completionist, are you? So are you less exposed to the sort of issues I'm talking about?
Well, the issue there is if you're being super anal and feel like you have to do everything on a map. I mean, that's not what these games are designed, how they're designed to be played. There's the option there is if you want to, but it's giving you additional content if you feel the need. I mean, the single player in this game is expansive. Like the actual core story stuff, which is all geared around taking over various parts of the United Kingdom as these Vikings. And it's fucking amazing. It's like you have this alliance map, it's called. You go to the different parts like Shropshire and Leicestershire and stuff like this, and you basically say you pledge that you're going to go after it. Then you go there and you have a quest chain, and these quest chains will vary from anywhere from like a few hours to like 10 hours of gameplay, and they'll be all story based with the main characters of the game, and you'll be like learning about different kings and jarls and all this sort of part. That you're maybe you're going to try and install a puppet leader that's friendly to the Viking cause in this area, or maybe you're going here to remove the Templar influence. Not that they're called Templars in this; they're called the Order of the Ancients before the Templars. Maybe you're going there to remove them, and then you have a story about that. And it's usually really involved and engaging, well written, good cutscenes, good character stuff. I really like the main character Ivor, who you can either play male or female. It doesn't matter. She's great or he's great. I'm usually playing as a woman, as we watch the appearance of podcast cat Arthur.
I was going to say Arthur has come to defend Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
You mentioned the combat feeling like boring, which is mad because every different type of weapon has completely their own animations. They all feel completely different. For example, you could have a great sword, two-handed great sword, and fight just with that, right? And then that feels one way. Or you could have a short sword and a shield. That feels different. You could have two shields That feels really flipping weird. I mean, you basically turn into like fucking Captain America. You can throw them and everything. It's incredible. I personally at the moment I'm fighting with 2 hammers, so I'm dual wielding the basically Thor's hammer in each hand, and I'm just smacking fools up the place, and it looks and feels amazing. The combat is so cool. And then obviously they've got lots of abilities now, which is another element they've added for Valhalla, so you can unlock all these different different things you can do, like dives, flame weapons, and all kinds of stuff like that, and turn all those on. They've made a bigger emphasis in this game over Odyssey, bringing back stealth and bringing back assassination type gameplay, which kind of took a back seat a bit in Odyssey. It's really interesting actually, because Origins, one team developed that, different team developed Odyssey. Now the team that developed Origins developed Valhalla. So there are differences between Odyssey and Valhalla. They've listened to the feedback, they're really taking it on board. I just think Vikings in the UK, I just went to another location that I won't spoil, but it's really cool, and it's not the UK, and you go somewhere else in the world. Then there's mythical places you go to, which I won't spoil once again, which I think they listen to the feedback on some of the best stuff. I am very good, Rob. So there's loads of variety. So you've got these raids that you can do with your Yoms Vikings, which are like your crew of raiders, and you can like raid the abbeys and steal the resources from them and stuff like that, and do what Vikings do. I think it's a damn good time. It's like, I really like the direction they've taken Assassin's Creed in. I know some people have some criticism for it, but I think it's exactly what it needed, because the sort of third-person stealth action game that we'd had for so long, through the Ezio trilogy, through 3, all the way, up to basically Origins, that had been played out. So you move it into this action RPG territory, and I think the world, and on the X as well, the weather effects, the lighting, everything about how the game looks, the game runs, stunning. It's just stunning.
It looks good. And it's the reason I nearly bought it, because I wanted something to show off my new console. But I don't know. Can you honestly say, I'm probably not going to change your mind, because looking at your stats on this list of Gamerscore stuff that Cam put together, this is one of your most played franchises. So I'm not going to change your mind, am I? But
nope.
I just think Ubisoft games are pretty much universally boring. However good the setup sounds, Vikings in Britain sounds brilliant. Honestly, it really does. I think there's even a Keith Flint knockoff in there somewhere. There's like a Prodigy mission.
Yes, there is. I told you about that. Yes, yes.
And I thought, yes, I've got to buy it for that. And then I thought, no, it's a Ubisoft open world. It's not going to be fun. Can you honestly say that this is as fun and creative as Yakuza?
Okay, so let me like tie up here with Yakuza wins and goes through. Okay,
What?
I agree. Yakuza goes through at this point.
Yes. All right, cool.
But
I don't care whether it loses next round, but I couldn't see Yakuza go out to
look at Rob's face.
Assassin's Creed.
How the what?
I absolutely love Assassin's Creed, right? But I am a mark for these games. I know I am a mark for Ubisoft open world games. I love something I do in these games is when I'm at a high enough level, I will put Netflix on this screen, and on this screen, I will just go around and do every single viewpoint synchronization on the map. I will spend hours riding to them all and just doing that. That's something I really enjoy doing.
How many hours
and I know
have you
that's
put
mad.
into Valhalla compared to Yakuza?
Oh, I already said it's like 50 in Valhalla, like 5 or 6 in Yakuza.
Exactly.
Right. But
that's indicative of the quality of experience there.
It's the indicative of my enjoyment of that experience, right? And I think Richard's points that they are a formula, that they don't do a lot new. This is iterative. I mean, Valhalla is probably the best of these new 3 AC games since they changed their format slightly. It definitely is the best. But at the same time, what's it doing new? It's not doing a lot different to what we've had in Odyssey. I still think Odyssey is the one I enjoyed the most, but I've grown into Valhalla. It took about 20-30 hours to really hook me, and now I'm properly invested in the story and finding out what happens and how it connects to the wider universe. But there are bobbins. I can't ignore that technical issue. I mean, that fucking 10 hours of gameplay, man. I mean, fuming.
I just had a cat holding onto my finger with his paw, so I don't really care much. I'm the winner for today.
Beautiful father and son moment.
Exactly. Fine, Yakuza goes through. I disagree wildly, but
Rob seems so angry. But you've not played either. I mean,
one interests me, one bores me.
yeah. I love Assassin's Creed, but I think Yakuza is a fresher experience.
At this point, I'm wondering what's actually going to throw Yakuza out by the sounds of it, because it does everything.
Something will.
It's going to be your favourite, Rob.
Oh, it's going to be my favourite, because that is not a discussion I'm letting slide.
Oh, we see.
Well, I have notes.
Getting ready,
I have
ready for a
articles
fight.
Preparing. Yes.
I love it. I love it. Getting ready.
Let's move on then.
Watch
Right,
it
you
now.
marked it down. It's number 8. Right, let's roll the wheel. Everybody should play Valhalla, but yeah, Yakuza is.
Oh, I'm intending to. Valhalla is going to be played.
I thought it might hit this. I had a feeling. I was just like, I wonder, because I think this is an obvious. Doom Eternal by id Software.
Doom
against
wins.
Yakuza.
Well, I know.
Who wants to go first on this? I've beaten Doom Eternal and played the DLC, so I've got some experience here. But who wants to go first? Who wants to fight this?
For my lack of experience when it comes to Yakuza, I'm not really one for the. I don't. Would you class it as a JRPG almost? Or
yeah.
The combat is turn based. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not really fond of JRPGs, that sort of style. Despite my love for like anime and stuff like that, the style of gameplay didn't really bond with me too well. However, the run and gun absolute gore fest that is Doom Eternal is absolutely brilliant. Loved it.
Doom Eternal is visceral, blood pounding, and explosively good. Sorry, none of those words can be applied to Yakuza.
I thought you were naming the difficulties.
Okay, so you're both right. However, Doom 2016 is a better game.
Yeah, but we're not talking about Doom 2016. We're talking about Doom Eternal. No, Doom 2016 is irrelevant.
No, it's not. It's not irrelevant because Doom Eternal builds on 2016, and in my mind, overcomplicated the formula, and actually some of the stuff they added in Doom Eternal detracted from the experience.
In the same way that Destiny 2 detracted from itself by cutting content.
Well, not in the same way, because this is additional content that actually overcomplicated the combat puzzle, as they call it, right? When they discuss the game. Now, what I'm talking about, I'm sure you all know, but let's talk about it in case people haven't played Doom Eternal, is in Doom 2016, you had some mechanics to get back ammo and armor. And in Doom Eternal, they've kind of doubled down on that. They've added in new elements like the flamethrower and stuff like that, which every little thing does something different. So you've got this thing that gives you ammo, this thing that gives you armor, this thing that gives you, power up, this thing that gives you shields. And it's like, oh my God, I just want to kill fucking demons. I don't want to have to do a maths puzzle while I'm doing it. And then they added platforming, which was kind of like, okay, I guess sometimes, but also like, did you just do this to pad the experience out? Like at the same time?
Put it this way. In Doom 2016, I got lost in platforming section, gave up and never went back.
Oh man, wow. Oh, wow. Really? Wow.
Yeah. Doom 2016 was a car crash for me.
It took me a while, but I did finish Doom 2016 eventually. I went back to it and finished it off and really enjoyed it. This one, I think I spoke on the show when it joined Game Pass, didn't I? And I was talking about how I was playing it on my phone with that controller that I got. And
yeah.
I was saying how excited I was.
It's so the wrong way to play Doom.
I know. How excited I was to play Doom Eternal. And it was like a real showpiece, a flagship for the Game Pass service. And then I got into it for a couple of hours, and exactly your experience. So many different mechanics being thrown at me, like text boxes thrown up to explain what this next thing is. And it felt like it was it maybe there to disrupt the pace? Because the first game got a lot of criticism for being always on. There was never any downtime. It was just exhausting.
But that's why it was so good.
That's why it was so good. That doesn't necessarily mean that's
feel exhausting. But I'm not sure this is the right solution. Just chucking in loads of new pickups and mechanics that need explaining with unavoidable text boxes on screen. It just felt like it was a slog to get going in.
So is the soapy Japanese man going to win again?
No, let me just say. So in those combat arenas in Eternal, the problem I had was that and you do this in 2016 as well. But in this one, it was more acute because you're running around in a circle, kiting the enemies, right? Because and what you're doing is then picking certain enemies to fight to get certain power-ups, because it's my armor's low, so I can get my armor by doing a flamethrower on this guy and then killing him. I'll get my armor pick up. Then I need to do a chainsaw attack on that guy to get more ammo. So I now do that, and then, so you're just running around in a circle, always running around in a circle, and it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt a bit tedious at times. It's like playing almost like an instant death game where you know exactly what you've got to do, you know exactly what the pattern is, and you just have to repeat it. Because, and even on normal, like the game was hard, especially to start with, and I think it was really acute to me when I came back to play the Ancient Ones DLC. I'd not played the game, you know, in that intervening period since heavily at launch, completed it, came back for the DLC. Go in straight away, and it's straight in at 11, right? Straight like a later level. I just kept getting killed. I couldn't do anything because I'd forgotten like the muscle memory of how to play that game, and it was like I then had to go back and play like the earlier levels of the game to remind myself how to play it. That's not a fun first-person shooter. That's just, you've obfuscated the mechanics too much.
The soapy Japanese man's
felt
gonna
strange.
win again.
So I don't know. Yeah, the other thing that bummed me out was the music was shit compared to 2016 as well. What went on with Mick Gordon and how they changed it to this, they did all this crap without him and used this procedurally generated fucking soundtrack. It was garbage. Nowhere near as good.
Ben, you're surprising me today, honestly. Because I came into this setup, Yakuza versus Doom, and I thought, wow. I was kind of resigned to it in my mind. I can see where this is going to go. And honestly, I wouldn't push too hard for Yakuza to go any further. It's done really well. Are you saying that it might win over Doom Eternal?
I think it wins over Doom Eternal in my mind, yeah.
I think so. I didn't really feel like I came across any of the negative things that you brought up, Richard, when it comes to Doom. Because, I for one, I didn't really go around and around kiting enemies. I was in there ripping and tearing like it tells me to with, super shotguns and...
Did you complete it?
Stuff. Yeah, I completed it.
So you got to the harder stuff. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Yeah, fair play.
Yeah.
Fair play.
I haven't got that far in it. It's only a couple hours in, so I don't feel like I'm qualified to. I'm not going to shit on it. The first game was really good when I eventually gave it the time. Maybe the same would be true of Doom Eternal. I haven't given it that time yet. So...
What do you think of the final boss, Cam?
Monumentous.
Huge, but did you enjoy playing again, beating it? Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I mean, I did, yeah, because obviously, I mean, like with most bosses and stuff like that, there's always going to be a weak point you have to aim for, but, there were times where I was, a bit low of health, so I did have to kind of like break off from the initial attack to, take care of some of the enemies and stuff like that, and I enjoyed that kind of like, I need to manage this, and this, but it was more second nature to me than it was to like, okay, I really need to think ahead. Okay, I can shoot this guy for another 5 seconds before my health gets too low or anything like that, It was just a quick case of like, beep, beep, okay, sweet, off to fight someone else. That was it. I didn't really have that kind of...
It's definitely got my favourite weapon of the year in it, which is the super shotgun with the hook shot when it's flame enhanced as well. So you do the armor damage as well, and that is an incredible weapon. However, what bugs me is the tuning they've done, where you can't carry any more than 12 fucking shots for a super shotgun at one time. So you have to constantly be switching weapons, doing the armor damage, and doing the weapon kills, so you can get the ammo back. And it was just like I felt like I was always just resource gathering,
forcing variety on you.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say, I mean, you make that sound negative, don't you, when you say forcing
variety? That's exactly what you've said is a negative, that they only let you carry 12 shells for the shotgun.
But what I think what it was in Doom
like
2016
survival sort of mechanics, isn't it?
Yeah, and I understand the desire to do that with the gameplay, but what was so great about Doom 2016 is that it was an incredible example of empowering the player. You feel like a total fucking badass in that game, especially when you start getting things like the super shotgun and really understanding those combat mechanics. You feel so empowered. You feel like the Doom Marine, like the promise that was there in the original Doom, right? So when they've clearly gone, they have this thing about wanting the player to play the game right. I've watched documentaries with these guys and listened to interviews, and they want a lot of players. They did it wrong. They'd stick to their pistol because it had infinite ammo. Remember in 2016, and they'd hide in the corner and just chip dudes down, right? Which is not how the game was designed to be played. So therefore, they decided to be more aggressive in their design language and force players to engage with the game in the way they wanted the player to engage with the game. And I'm not sure. I think they kind of went too far. Like they kind of forced you down a very particular play style, and it's not bad. It just felt like I was always resource managing, and I wasn't able to actually just be a badass, you know, with like awesome arsenal of weapons. And you know, I was forced to use weapons I didn't like using because some of the weapons, you know, they'd run out of ammo, so I'd have to use the guns I didn't enjoy, and that's not fun. You should be able to use the weapons you like using, surely.
Yeah,
I for one used the weapons that were better for the situation. I didn't really have a favorite, you know. If I had a lot of the grunts that were further away, quick sniper mode variant, you know, or
sounds like you were playing it the way they wanted. You know, you got into the idea of playing it the way it had been designed to be played a bit more than maybe I did, and I was looking for a bit more freedom to do it my way, whereas you were playing it correctly, if you like. Yeah,
so
I was playing as a Doom brain.
So who's winning between Yakuza and Doom?
You're lucky, Cam, that your preference matched how they decided you were going to play it.
That's
so
it.
It's down.
So who's going to win?
So where we all stood. Cameron, you're Doom on this. Rob, you're Doom on this. Richard, you're Yakuza on this.
I think it's unfair for me to say, so I'm going to leave it to you guys.
God, well, then it's 2-1, isn't it?
But we aren't doing this democratically. We aren't doing this with votes, are we? That's what you said earlier.
No, it's what I said earlier. It's interesting.
Based on personal experience, I'm going to say Yakuza because I've played it a lot more, and I haven't felt like I've bounced off it. I have felt that in Doom Eternal. So if I had to pick one, I would say Yakuza. But I'm just being honest. That may not be entirely fair if I gave Doom more time.
I think for the masses as well, I think more people would probably go for like Doom Eternal as well.
It's not the masses though, it's us.
I know, but I'm just saying it's a game of the year, and
it's a factor that accessibility and audience acceptance is a factor in a video game, because you can have an amazing video game that is mega complicated and complex that pushes people away.
Which is what I would describe Doom Eternal as.
Yeah.
When you compare it to 2016, anyway.
Yeah, but we're not comparing it to 2016. We're comparing it to Yakuza.
We don't need to champion it, do we?
Exactly. And I don't feel we need to champion it much over a game like Yakuza. The soapy Japanese man is not going to win this one. Yes, I'm going to keep using that analogy because it's funny. The idea of a soapy Japanese man just punching games out of the way. That's funny.
All right, Doom can win this one. Doom can win this one if Richard isn't going to stand up hard on it.
I'm not certain Doom is going to hang around for a long time.
Not with what's coming, no.
All right, Yakuza's going to go out at some point, isn't it?
But that's not the. That's not the point. Don't look at it that way. Don't look at it that way.
If there's a
fight
compelling
for him, you want to fight for it.
Okay, I'll be a bit more hardline then. I'll say Yakuza definitely for me is better. I've enjoyed it a lot more than I did Doom.
Well, the hard thing for me is
it makes it more difficult then, doesn't it? Because we're not going to win.
The hard thing for me is that I've spent 25, 30 hours. It was a long game, Doom Eternal. Like, it took me a long time, over 20 hours to beat, but I beat it. You know, and I played DLC as well. Whereas I've only put a few hours into Yakuza, and I think the thing is with Doom, it's like, to me the problems with it are not acute. I still had a really good time. I'm the one that put it on this fucking list, right? So I definitely enjoyed it a lot. However, it's just like a disappointment to me because it didn't sing the way it did as it did for 2016. However, I still think it's good. I still think it's really, really good. I'm just not sure if it's, we're dealing with that thing again. It's a sequel, it's building on something, whereas Yakuza, while it's from an established franchise, it's a very much its own creature. So it's difficult because Yakuza feels so fresh and new, whereas Doom Eternal feels very much like a sequel to something I'd already done and not as good. But I will say this about Doom, the way it blows out the mythos, holy shitballs. Like, my word, the story and the character stuff, I'm like, man alive, wow, did they take that in a weird place.
Right.
But I kind of love that.
Come on, Ben, make a decision.
All right, yeah, Doom wins. Doom wins.
Damn.
I don't know why I didn't make that decision, but Doom wins.
Fair enough.
So could somebody put it on and I'll spin the wheel? Put Doom down as one win for me as well as we move along into the really, really sharp end of things here. Oh my lord, look at these games. Oh my god. Okay. You couldn't get 2 more different games, but they also came out at pretty much the same time. So, Animal Crossing New Horizons by Nintendo versus Doom Eternal. I believe they came out in the same month of March.
Yes, because there were all those memes about the main character. Yes. I think they came out on the same day, where it was the Doom Marine and the Animal Crossing New Horizons character riding around together.
This head-to-head was foretold in the stars.
Indeed it was. Right. The meme lords have approved of this matchup. So, why does it win?
But you stick them both into Smash Brothers. I think I'll take my chances with the Doom Marine.
Yeah, but that would involve playing Smash Brothers.
Richard, I really want to go to Richard on this because this boy lived Animal Crossing for a long time.
Animal Crossing has to go through. Simple as that. It's such an important game this year, and all the conversations we've had so far about whether a game counts so much if it just builds slightly on a previous iteration. Yeah, some of that is true for Animal Crossing New Horizons. A lot of it has been done before, but what I want to say is it's such an important context that Animal Crossing was released into with the first lockdown and giving so many people a way out of just the locked-in feeling that brought to us. Animal Crossing gave me a reason to live.
Undeniably, that's impactful, and I understand completely where you're coming from. That is not what Nintendo intended.
I mean, Richard convinced me to buy 2 copies of Animal Crossing, one for me and one for my wife. So he single-handedly got me to do that. So I bought 2 of those. So what can I say about it, right? I was new to Animal Crossing, not played it before. It's fine. I think I bounced off of it pretty quick, maybe like 10 to 12 hours or something, which is nothing in terms of Animal Crossing. No, and the thing that happened there with my wife was really into it. And then we were basically made to move house. Outside of our own choice during lockdown, that first lockdown. So strangely enough, when you actually have to move house, you're not so interested in virtually looking after your house. So she basically stopped playing it and has never gone back. And I imagine, though, if that hadn't happened, she would have continued. And she was definitely enjoying it.
That's a shame. So what really makes the difference in New Horizons, you won't have seen yet, because the previous games have put great stock in sort of maintenance tasks. It's about getting your house, paying your mortgage off, upgrading your house a bit, and at the point that you've got the biggest house that you can possibly get...
Fun, Rob?
Hang on. So are you describing the video game or life there? Because I thought we played these games for escapism.
Yeah, okay. So I'm telling you, I understand that doesn't sound all that enthralling. That's what previous games have been about. I've enjoyed them, but I get why people might think that's just busy work.
You love busy working games, though. That's what you love.
I love it. But what New Horizons brings is a level of creativity that we've not seen in the series before. And it gave me something, and lots of other people, something to invest in and feel like they were making a difference when all they could do was sit at home.
He's right. And he's right. I mean, Cameron, you mentioned the masses, and Richard sort of dismissed it a little bit, but the impact this game has had socially across millions of players, people that would never play it before, people buying Switches just to play this game, and then spent hundreds of hours. I love how he's stroking his beard while I talk to him. It's amazing. That can't be ignored. But at the same time, this is personal experience. Richard, you were the only one moved this way. I mean, I had outside factors that affected my wife's enjoyment. I'd already kind of bounced off. I feel really strongly about it, though. The whole idea of having to come on and play the game every day, the whole idea of having to come on at certain times a day to get certain things, all of that is frankly ridiculous and isn't something that's fair to any type of adult gamer who has any kind of life. And I think the reason that it worked during lockdown is a lot of people didn't have lives, right? So it would not have landed the way it did at any other time in history. However, I think the mechanics at the game are sound. They've obviously been doing it for a long time. They know how to make these games, and it's perfectly pastoral and appealing. And you go around, you pick up your weeds, you tend to your flowers,
it's more than that,
do all of this.
You've really only seen the busy work element of it, Ben. So once you get into the end game of Animal Crossing, it's much more creative.
Well, once the mortgage is gone.
No, yeah, well, yes, frankly. Once the mortgage is gone, the game is very much about making the island perfect. And they've never done that before. So they've got a whole raft of new tools where you can create rivers, you can create cliffs, you've got paths up and down from the cliffs, and you can craft your island however you like. And it takes a long time and a lot of effort to map it out and make sure it's perfect in the way that you want it. And you've got the houses in the right sequence, and you've got your neighbors moving in. And when it all pans out, when everyone's moved into place, and you've got your shop in the perfect location, and you've got all of your rocks moved into a little rock farm if you spend the time to do all that, and it takes flipping ages to do it. Once you've got the perfect little village, you think, yes. And one moment I'm really proud of, and this sounds awful, I invited my mother-in-law to come and see my island because she bought Animal Crossing off the back of my recommendation. So she comes into my island and she's like,
"Where's that lamp I bought you last year?"
How am I ever going to get this? Because at the time she basically had a tent, and my island is perfect. Like,
I mean, yeah.
everywhere.
So I had a similar experience with
playing Animal Crossing. Where you were just having a power trip. you were God for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So
ideal island, creating cliffs and rivers.
I've got a couple of things here. So I had that experience with my wife, and I think I visited your island as well, Richard. When you go and see it, and you visit people, and you're, oh my god, that's super impressive, because you know how much time that takes, because you've played enough of the game to understand how intensive the work is. The other aspect is I have absolutely had that experience, but on a slightly more obfuscated macro level, I'm a big fan of things like city building games. Right, so it's exactly the same thing where you have that sense of satisfaction of sculpting that city in the perfect way. You've maximized traffic. You've got the commercial district humming. Productivity is massive in the industrial zone. All of that. It's the same, just slightly larger scale.
It is like that, but it's intimate.
But it's sort of like getting to that. If it had happened quicker, I might have been slightly more connected. But the fact that it takes so long to get to that point where you can really affect that change. That was my frustration. I just felt like I was literally walking around picking up shit. It's just like,
it takes a little while to get there, but once you do, honestly, it's one of the standout moments of gaming for me in last year, easily. That's from someone who's played all of the other Animal Crossing games. This was really up there.
Rob wants to say something.
I'm going to put Animal Crossing New Horizons through for the sole reason it has managed to create its own capitalism.
Yeah.
Oh, turnip farming.
Turnip farming and the turnip stock market.
Oh
my god. It has its
what
own
was
stock
that?
market. Very few games are that complex, and I think it has to beat out Doom Eternal. And that pains me to say, because that game is my idea of I would rather stare at a wall. I'm not an Animal Crossing gamer at all. No disrespect to people who are. It's just not my sort of game.
I think it deserves a win at least, because it did have such an impact.
100%.
So you can work a stock market in Animal Crossing. Is this where all the Redditors learns to buy all of GameStop?
Yes. It's a real turnip for the books.
That guy donated 40 grand's worth of his takings, didn't he, to charity. It was pretty awesome.
It's a real turnip for the books.
All right, so you're marking that down for me, Rob. Bad. You're marking that down for me, and I will spin the wheel. We're down to like 5 games now, I think.
I'm nervous where my favourite's going to come.
And we are getting to some of the biggest games. I'm amazed that they've not come up yet. Some of these are crazy. Right, okay. 4 games. Last of Us Part 2.
Oof.
Oh god, I really need a Wii as well.
You have to hold it, buddy.
No, Nintendo Wii's not being made anymore.
No Wii until we're done. We've been going a while. I don't even want to know how long this is. So 2 hours plus.
We're over
Part
2
2
hours.
versus Animal Crossing.
Sorry?
Last of Us Part 2 versus Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing wins.
I don't think
it's quite hard.
I don't think this is clear cut. Because
okay, can I come at you with something quick?
Yeah.
Can I come at you with something quick? Lockdown, the year we've had, Animal Crossing lands. It is the balm needed to give people hope. and investment in the world again to give them some escapism. Last of Us Part 2 lands. It's a myopic torture porn fest of misery. That's why I didn't get on with that game at the time, and I haven't gone back because it's just too fucking dark, man, for the year we had last year. And I think a lot of people have put it off for the same reason. A lot of people have bounced off of it and put it off for the same reason.
Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing gives you freedom to do what you want, when you want, how you want, to create that perfection. Last of Us 2 forces you to perform actions that you don't really want to do, and then tells you off for doing them in the story. So, apparently, this is feedback. I was reading reviews and reading about this because I've not played the game. So, this is what I've heard. And, sorry...
recognise that.
Kind of the same way Richard was criticising Assassin's Creed Valhalla based on stuff he'd heard that was also inaccurate.
Well, do you know any more detail than that? What does it tell you off for? What do you mean?
I will get back to you.
Okay. Also, I've read this review.
So, my experience is not that. Obviously, like I said earlier, it's a linear narrative experience, although the different elements of the narrative are interwoven in a really clever way. It keeps the experience fresh. You're not always following the same character. You get different perspectives, and it keeps you surprised. When you get down to the gameplay level, it isn't linear. I don't feel it's linear at all. There are open world sections similar to what we've seen in Uncharted, so certainly not on a massive scale, but enough to make you think you have some agency in this world. And within sort of the core gameplay loops of combat, there's stealth elements, there's open combat, there are different weapons and tools that you can use, and you can use them in ways that are creative, and they're certainly not forced or expected by the developer in the ways that we've talked about Doom, where they've clearly got an intent of how you're supposed to play it. That's not my feeling of Last of Us Part 2 at all. It felt like you were trying to work within the confines of the materials that you had at hand. It's very much a game about ransacking the environment for whatever you can find and using it creatively. Making traps, you can decide whether you want to make tripwires or bombs, or maybe not use any of that at all. Maybe just use a bow and arrow. And how you interact with the resources that you have at hand, the different types of enemies that come in. So there are new enemies in this. There are dogs that can sniff you and carry on following you perpetually. However stealthy you are, they always find you. There are different creative ways of getting through any sort of scenario, and I felt like despite the linear setup of the game ostensibly, it gives you a lot of freedom with how you play out moment to moment. So it was great.
Last of Us Part 2 was the game we deserved, but not the game we needed in 2020.
Yeah, I think that's
the game
that was coming out.
Don't you sully that quote with The Last of Us 2.
I wasn't saying it in a positive way.
Okay, then please continue.
It was a case of we need escapism and levity and something to make us not face reality when it's as harsh as it is. Whereas Last of Us Part 2 did all the opposites to that. Now, you could say there's definitely merit to that. And they had to put the game out at some point. They've been working on it for many years and it had to come out. So I don't really blame them for it. But at the same time, I don't think I think it's critically been very, very well received. It's obviously won a lot of awards already, Game of the Year related. But it just I couldn't do it. I got through the first open world section. I kind of saw where it was going. I saw what happened to Joel, and I know what happens. I've read about what you were talking about earlier. The fact that you play as the antagonist ostensibly for a large portion of the game, and then therefore you get both sides of the story, and that's brilliant. I think we need more of that in gaming. That maturity of storytelling is brilliant. Honestly, huge props to them for doing it, having the bravery to do it, having the skill to pull it off as well as they did. I can't vote for this now in this year. I just can't. It might be if we had the option, for example, in next year's Game of the Year to put in one game from the previous year as our we didn't play it until the following year, Game of the Year contender sort of thing as like a wild card, this would probably be there. I probably will get around to it maybe this summer or something, but last year, couldn't do it.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, the different antagonist thing is, it's not just chucked in. You get to it and you think, oh, this will extend it by a couple hours. It's honestly like 2 games in one. You get to that point where it switches, and that is just about halfway in the game. There's so much. You get this whole other game, like a fully crafted other experience from a completely different perspective with different skill sets in the character that you're playing. And it just completely changes your perspective on everything else that's happened. It's masterful.
It reminds me a little bit of the, not exactly the same, but it reminds me a little bit of the Raiden Metal Gear 2 switcheroo, where everybody expected it to be Solid Snake, and actually you played the whole game as this completely different character and in a completely different way. But obviously halfway through, you still did get the Ellie experience. That was on the box art, everybody was expecting. But, to make a change like that is really insanely cool. Like, I think that's insane. But
it's more than that, because the Raiden switch was just, I'm not going to get to play as Solid Snake then. And that was it. It wasn't
earned in the same way.
It wasn't. It didn't give you anything new in terms of perspective. You were just a different character than you expected to play.
I think it annoyed quite a lot of fans as well. That sort of switcheroo, but was there a better response for The Last of Us 2 though?
It's won all the fucking awards. Like, it's won a lot of awards. Like, it won the VGA Game of the Year and stuff like that. So I think, like I said, critically super well received. I just wonder how many people who bought it, like me, actually played it. Like, actually got through this game. I don't think completion rates are going to be that high. Not in the year we've had.
Probably not, because it's a long game.
Yeah, it really is.
But there's one point. How much should I say? There's one point near the end. There's a face-off between 2 characters. You're playing as one. You've already played as another, and you have a real problem, a real knot in your stomach to think, I've got to try and kill that person. Do I want to? Do they deserve it?
Let me guess, though, being Naughty Dog. Let me guess, being Naughty Dog, they take away choice, though.
I was about to say that there's no choice there. It's, do you want to continue with the game or turn the console off, put the controller down, and live where they both live?
It doesn't matter. It's how they've made it work in that moment, and it doesn't feel like you've got no choice. I felt absolutely like, shit, I don't want to have to do this, but it just doesn't feel like a gameplay mechanic. Like, it's not going to let me progress until I do something. It was enforced by the story. I was going to have to do something. I simply had to, and I was invested in it enough that it didn't even cross my mind, actually, that what happens if I don't? I've got to do it. And it was really, really such an emotionally impactful moment that nothing has come close to that.
But you were quite emotionally effusive about the effect Animal Crossing had on you this year as well.
Yeah, that's circumstantial. But when I reflect on a game within its own merits, Last of Us Part 2 is objectively better.
And I think that's totally valid. I mean, I think you guys brought up that counterpoint that, Animal Crossing was powerful because of the time we played it, whereas Richard's argument here for Last of Us Part 2 is that this was powerful because of the writing, because of the game, because of what you've experienced in it, and therefore has more merit, and therefore is more enduring. And I think you can't argue with that. And I think the three of us don't really have a horse in this one. So I would be inclined to put Last of Us Part 2 through at this point, just because of Richard's argument for it, really.
As just to counter what you were saying earlier on as well, I had a quick look for you about completion rates for The Last of Us 2. Now, it hasn't actually sold as much as like God of War or the Spider-Man game on PS4. However, it has the highest completion percentage of all PS4 games right now at around about 58%.
Wow.
Whereas God of War and Spider-Man are around about 51 to 53% completion.
Interesting.
I love
Not surprising in terms of the story. Absolutely makes you want to finish it.
So less people bought it because of when it came out, even though a lot more people were playing games at the time, which is quite damning in its way, because you look at if it's sold less than God of War, which was just whatever when it came out. This is a huge sequel to one of the biggest games of all time, but most critically received. Sold less, but the people that did buy it invested more time in it. So I think that's really curious. That's really curious. Wow. Okay, thank you for that information, Cameron. Data boy in the corner here. That's really good. I love it. But like I said, I'm inclined for it to go 3.
Yeah, I agree. Not Animal Crossing. That's off the list now.
I will go with the consensus.
I'm interested to see how it does against one of these 3 that are left on the wheel. So can somebody put Animal Crossing down and I will spin the wheel?
Happy. Rob's never happy.
He's not. Well, he hasn't had his big one yet.
I'm prepared for my big one. I wanted Last of Us out of the way because I didn't want the several-hour debate.
Love it.
All right. Well, Mr. Nook is tucked up under the daisies. So who's going against Last of Us?
Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh,
interesting.
This game is incredible. This is one of my favorite open world games of all time. It's absolutely. You want to talk about beauty? You want to talk about art? You should see some of the screenshots that have come from the photo mode in this game. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the photo mode in this game is one of the best ever. You can do all kinds of things with animation, time of day, weather effects, you name it. You can change it all to take these incredible pictures. But this game does something with emptiness, right? Because the actual island of Tsushima isn't full like an Assassin's Creed game with buildings and hamlets and people, or a Witcher 3 game or a Cyberpunk game with NPCs everywhere. It's just gorgeous. Like, you feel like you're in a Kurosawa film. You feel like you're experiencing this historical Japanese epic. I really like the main character as well you play as, and I really like his sort of story. But to be honest, it's all background to me. The fact is it's the world. The fact is it's the combat, which I really like, how it feels to be a samurai, to do those one-hit kills when you do the showdown modes, when you first get into combat and stuff like that. Then also you can play kind of like, Ezio if you want. You can stealth it around, you can assassinate people, and you can smoke bombs and stuff. I think Richard's popped to the loo. He couldn't hold it. I understand. We've been going a while. But no, this game is stunning. I personally don't know if it's going to stand up against Last of Us Part 2. It's higher on the list for me. Have you guys at least seen some of it? Right.
My unbiasedness aside against Last of Us 2, I legitimately think Ghost of Tsushima is just a better game. Like, mechanically, how it's structured, how the gameplay loop, how the combat is done. I just think that is just functionally, mechanically better.
Yeah, and look, the fact that it's Sucker Punch and they came from the infamous games, right? Superhero open world games to a very different type of open world game. I think, like you said, I think the combat loop is better than Last of Us Part 2. I don't think there's any way you can argue, however, that the storytelling and the characterization are better. I mean, Last of Us Part 2's writing and digital acting, Naughty Dog are just better than everyone. You can't even stand next to them. You can't. There's no point. It's kind of like, when Blizzard makes Diablo 3, every other action RPG. There's no point. Yeah. Like, or when they make Overwatch and you want to do a character shooter, there's no point. You don't even get to stand in the same room as those people. Like, Naughty Dog are just leagues ahead of storytelling ability. However, the story that they told was too much for me in 2020. Right? It was too much. I couldn't deal with that level of fucking just unrelenting misery. Whereas in Ghost of Tsushima, there's peril and there's drama and there's harrowing moments and stuff. But you feel more empowered, you feel more able to deal with those problems and to actually be this just awesome badass samurai. Who doesn't want to be a badass samurai? You get to find different armor costumes and stuff and look like a badass, and you upgrade your sword and you can put different handles on the sword and do all of that and just look like you're cosplaying as the ultimate samurai character. And short of a Jedi, what better character is there to be? I mean, a Jedi is a space samurai. These guys are super, super badass. And it's just the world. It's just, you literally just like riding your horse and it's just, oh, beautiful moment. Oh, another beautiful moment. Oh my God, that's so stunning. Oh my God, my eyes are bleeding from the gorgeousness. And it's just constant. It's just continuous, gorgeous beauty. I mean, Richard, you've just returned. And I was just saying, compared to Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima cannot compete from a digital performance point of view in storytelling, ability. However, in gameplay ability, I do strongly believe Ghost of Tsushima is superior to Last of Us Part 2. I think the actual experience of being the samurai, of playing this game, is definitely more fun. So that was my kind of argument here. I'm willing to take on counters here. So, yeah.
I haven't played it. All I'd say is that if you haven't got too far into Last of Us 2, you haven't seen everything that it has to offer, because it does constantly build. It's not the same all the way through. not only because it changes protagonists and brings all sorts of different ideas along with that. There are other characters that tag along and help you in different ways, and it puts you in lots of different scenarios as well, where you've got to think creatively. So, whatever you've seen so far, there is more to it than you've seen.
However, I have played Last of Us Part 1, so I have and completed it. So I have a pretty good idea of how the combat loop works, the crafting, the ranged weaponry mixtured with the melee weaponry, up close stuff. What the infected are like. Yeah, they might have layer on stuff onto that, and I'm sure they do, and I'm sure that it's grown in certain areas, but it's not going to be markedly different, is it?
Just trying to think back. No, but yeah, that's probably fair. I mean, I don't think it's worlds away from Part 1. It's certainly better, and there's more. I don't know. It's difficult because I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima to really compare.
But... I mean, it's to me the most beautiful game this year. I mean, that's only one facet of a game, obviously, but the fact that an open world game can look that good with that many varieties of biome as well. So the island is kind of split into like 3 separate bits. The further north you get, it gets sort of snowy as well and stuff like that. But just in the south, you've got these amazing forests of falling golden leaves and the wind going through the long grass and watching it move and sway. And the fact that they actually use the wind, this beautiful mechanic, is how it guides you to objectives. So you mark an objective on the map, and then the wind magically tells you the way to go. So it's full of this wonderful mysticism, and there are these foxes that show you where these temples are, and you follow them through the environment, and they use all of that to introduce you to different beautiful views, and it just kind of really just settles into this fantastically beautiful constructed world. Like I said, it's pretty empty. There's not like it's full of NPCs, so they could really just double down their environmental design and give you these vistas that sweep you away to somewhere else, which is exactly what I wanted in 2020. So it was like...
Well, it's definitely a game I want to play.
Oh, it's great.
I do want to play it, but having played both of these games then, do you think you've described a lack of story that's made up for by the great gameplay and the great...
Not so much a lack of story. I think what I was saying when you weren't here was that you can't compete with Naughty Dog. Right, the digital acting and performances and writing, how all that combines at Naughty Dog, they're on another level to pretty much every other studio working at the moment. Right, that nobody is producing content like that in games except them. They're the only ones doing it, and it's just mind blowing. I think Miles Morales kind of gets there, but it never tries to do anything as ambitious as them. So I think you look at what Naughty Dog does, and it's just like fucking hell, winner, yeah. Sure, you can't beat that. But it's it feels more like an Assassin's Creed type of storytelling. Few cutscenes here, some in action models. They look good, but they're not Naughty Dog good. So it's like it's still really well done.
Can I check out a preconception, because they always work well. My feeling for Ghost of Tsushima, it's a Sucker Punch game. The last game I played by them was
Infamous Second Son
launch game on PS4, and
while a long time.
While that looked really great, that had a similar feel from what you're describing. A world that looks beautiful but isn't really populated very fully. It felt a little bit sparse. Some of the areas felt like they were repeated a lot, and
what they probably
did in a narrative way.
What they probably did was look at their strengths a bit more, and that's why they've moved to an agrarian setting. They've come out of a city. They understand that their environmental design is one of their strengths. So let's double down on a setting where that makes sense, and there is more variety in the combat than in the Second Son. Definitely, what Jin can do, mix up the ghost attacks with the samurai attacks, mixes up the different power ups and the abilities you can unlock as you go along. There's a lot more variety than, I want to say, Denson, whatever his name was in Second Son, with the ghost, with the smoke powers. There was like 4 things you could do, right? So in Tsushima, there's a lot more you can do, and I think it's absolutely the pinnacle of that type of open world. That's why it would be my pick over Last of Us Part 2. Podcast dog. We're not seeing Frank in a while. I love it. All the animals come in for a visit here at GOTY. When you go long enough, everybody shows up at some point.
One thing I'm going to point out is that Sucker Punch on Ghost of Tsushima added the significant addition of multiplayer.
Yes, completely for free. Yeah, totally
that was
for free. And
post-game support that, to my knowledge, Last of Us Part 2 has not done. It's a complete experience that once it's done, it's done. There is little replayability value.
That is a downside, because the multiplayer in Last of Us Part 1 was great, actually.
It was really good. I think probably they just realised nobody played it. But
Didn't
it was
even
really
know
good.
there was multiplayer in Last of Us Part 1, to be
awesome.
honest.
Yeah, crafting on the fly and trying to... Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. So the fact that Ghost recognised the fact that these sorts of experiences are brilliant on their own, but when you put in the addition of being able to play them with your friends, it's another level.
Yeah, so this isn't just here's a bit of crappy deathmatch either. This is like a raid, horde mode, and sort of like you can also do like 2-player go through the game in co-op.
Yeah.
Like, but the raidy stuff and the horde mode are class based as well, and it's like they've really fleshed it out, like
it's
surprisingly
thought out rather than just bolted on.
Well, you can tell what that is. They probably had ideas for that while they were producing the game, and they were like, well, let's focus on the single player, and then if it does well, we can then put resources onto this and bring it out as post content. And it's like, and for free. So like, what? Who does that? Nobody does that. Like, really cool.
That is where this has to win over The Last of Us 2. Because there has been post-game support, there has been new features, and not just naff features that give us 20 quid, you can have this. This is something that we wanted to be part of this experience. There you go, community.
Before I throw to Richard here one last time, Cam, how are you feeling about this?
The thing is, over this top 5 that we've got going on, around about top 4 now, isn't it? I haven't played any of them, so it's like my opinion is moot. I know from previous experiences, I enjoyed the first Last of Us game, and as far as Ghost of Tsushima goes, it looks beautiful, and I have no doubt that I will enjoy the gameplay. As you said, samurai, Jedi, all the best badass warriors you can pretty much get. But it's hard to choose between the two for me. Which one I'd personally like to buy next? I'd probably lean towards getting Ghost of Tsushima next as my next game to play, because I like the open world kind of environments, and the gameplay looks absolutely beautiful and looks really smooth, and some of the fighting and stuff like that as well is kind of my style that I've really gotten into lately. So I'll probably vote towards Ghost of Tsushima in this instance.
Richard?
Difficult, because I've only played the one. I feel strongly that my personal favourite game, I'm going to put cards on the table, favourite game of last year was Last of Us Part 2, bar none. So I can't relinquish that for a game I haven't played. I'm going to stick by Last of Us 2 and see what you guys do.
So where I'm at right now is I don't think Ghost of Tsushima is my favourite game from last year. However, I would say I definitely preferred it to Last of Us Part 2, but it isn't my favourite game of last year. I'm kind of I'm being political again, because the game I think has to win hasn't come up yet, and it's kind of like...
Oh, you're not going to say Cyberpunk is going to win.
I'm not going to... No spoilers. So, I mean, it's a case of I'm always like willing to let this go so that I can fight for the one that I think has to win.
So the question Rob has now is, does he want to keep a strong contender to really kick Cyberpunk in the bollocks? Because it looks like it might be going that way.
This point, any complete game kicks Cyberpunk in the bollocks.
I agree. Well, we both nominated it to go out first thing.
Exactly. That before you said it, I was going to.
Okay, I'm cool with letting Last of Us Part 2 go again for another one.
Interesting, because I'm now in a very precarious situation, because I think we're now down to Cyberpunk, Ghost, Hades, and Last of Us.
Let Last of Us go through and let's see what happens.
Oh.
Somebody just put one win next to Ghost. It hasn't won any. What? Who typed that?
You just win against Last of Us.
No, Last of Us is 3.
Yeah.
Oh, Last of Us 3, sorry. Fat fingers.
Right, come on then. Who's going to get third?
So at the minute, let's just recap then. So we've got
Cyberpunk, Last of Us Part 2, and Hades.
Yep. And so far, in terms of wins, we've got
Yakuza with 3.
Tesla Force had 2. Doom had 1. Last of Us is on 2 now, isn't it?
Yeah. And he's
Animal Crossing had 1, and Yakuza is leading the pack with 3 wins so far.
So I've just spun the wheel, and it is, without a doubt, the game of the year 2020 that's come up, and it's Hades by Supergiant Games.
Oh, yes, Ben. Yes. Right. Okay. Hades, unsurprisingly, considering I'm wearing a Hades t-shirt, has been no secret of my pick. It is one of my favourite games of all time. It's number 2 under Destiny. Like, that is how highly I rate this game, right? It set new benchmarks for roguelikes where progression and storytelling are handled in a proper, meaningful way. Every death has an impact there. Every death is acknowledged, fed back into, and you develop a bit in your experience, your depth, immersion into the game every time you die. You don't come across the same bosses. The bosses you come up against will change. They will alter. It's like, oh, the Hydra again. Oh, no, shit, this one's doing different attack patterns. Shit. That happens regularly. You have characters that you think, oh, you're just a boss, but actually, no, they start appearing in the social space and they start having an impact. The game is portable. It's on the Switch. It's a wonderful example of amazing hardware on the Switch. Every single weapon that you have is viable. All 6 of them and all of their 4 variants each. So the depth of that, on the surface, looks really thin because you've only got 6 choices. No, it's like that. It's hugely deep. The voice acting, the character acting in it is amazing. Not Naughty Dog levels, I will agree. But considering the type of game it is, it's absolutely phenomenal and unmatched this year.
I mean, I'd say the writing is just as good as Naughty Dog, if not better. Like, I absolutely... I mean, I have been a Supergiant Games fan since their first game, which was Bastion. I have bought every single one on launch at the day it came out. Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, and now Hades. And with every game, they've attempted something completely different. They never rest on their laurels or their previous successes. But what they always show are certain factors, which is incredible gameplay, fantastic writing, and brilliant artwork. And once again, we have that in this incredible package. Now, I played this game when it first came out in early access on Epic. I've now gone back and played it as a 1.0 release on Nintendo Switch, and it is, frankly, perfect. I mean, it is as close to a perfect video game as you'll get because it brings every aspect. It brings incredible gameplay, it brings amazing visuals, and it brings fantastic character work. And I mean, like I said, writing on a Naughty Dog, if not better, sort of level. I mean, they're not trying to write realistic, gritty, but at the same time they hit this incredible family dynamic, these very believable characters, which frankly shouldn't be. They're mythical and weird and gods and monsters and whatever, but they all connect and they all have these relationships and this depth to them and history to them that only grows as you experience the game. And as you beat the game once, twice, 10 times, you get different narrative beats from it and you get different evolution, and it's incredible what they do with the storytelling and the gameplay, and how you keep wanting to come back for more. It's one of the most more I've ever played.
Fun fact, I've not completed it yet.
And
that frustrates me. I was playing it before we started recording this morning. I was playing it last night till 2 a.m.
It's an incredible game.
Yes.
It's an incredible game.
It's addictive. It's one more run. One more. I'll just... That's the chosen weapon. I'll just go in. What's the first bonus? Oh, that's a good bonus. Okay, I'll just clear a couple of rooms. See what it's like. And, yeah, it taps into that. It's amazing.
I was like that with Dead Cells recently, and I do like that style.
That's really good too, don't get me wrong.
You'd love Hades.
Hades is even better than Dead Cells. Hades is even better than Dead Cells. It's better than Hollow Knight. It's better than any of those recent roguelike 2D roguelike things. It's the pinnacle of the genre because it brings in story. It brings in narrative, story, character reasons to do what you're doing that makes sense, that grows, that actually gives you... So this is the thing you've seen with Supergiant over the years, especially with Pyre. Pyre was this weird mixture of basketball and visual novel. right?
What?
That's basically what Pyre is. Very strange game. But what you've got here is a mixture of roguelike and visual novel. But the visual novel is a little bit less obvious this time.
Yeah.
They've obfuscated it a bit. It feels more integral to the gameplay. It feels more integral to the experience. But it's what it is, and it's hundreds of thousands of lines of writing and dialogue, and it's just so fucking good. You never even... The crazy thing is you do all these runs, and you don't even ever hear dialogue repeated.
No.
I don't even know how they do it. There's no repetition. So you just got all this original, fresh content to bring you back again and again and again. And it's funny and it's heartfelt and it's amazing and it's just, oh man, it's like the best fucking game.
Every character is distinct and unique. Every different god set of power-ups is different and unique. They're all potent and powerful in their own right, but none of them are flawless. You have to find that balance. You can get through on luck, but skill. You need so much skill for that game. It's so good. Game of the year.
Hey, look, it's like Zagreus and Cerberus with Richard right now. Oh, they have a very cute little like connection too as well in the game. It's great. Oh, but guys, like neither of you played it, no? Cam, Richard?
I've played it. I played a bunch of it.
Ah, Richard did get in there.
Ooh.
Good man. Richard, thoughts?
I think it's great. I think, like you, I really liked Supergiant from back to Bastion, which I've completed multiple times.
Same.
And I think one of the standout things that people appreciated in Bastion was the voiceover and the idea that the narrative is reacting to your actions, and it felt organic in a way. I feel like this harks back to that and builds on it in so many clever ways. The fact that it's a roguelike where the levels literally are building organically. They're not preset as they were in Bastion, and it's the illusion of sort of reactivity to the player. It's all sort of triggers, isn't it? But this feels a lot more organic, and they get away with it. I don't know how they've done it, but yeah, what you guys are saying is right, that they've made this complex narrative weave through a game that is generating itself almost on the fly, but in a way that feels produced. I think it's genius. I haven't finished it either, and I haven't even got all of the weapons yet. But I know from the sort of the legacy of Supergiant what they can do and what I've experienced so far. I've now no doubt it's going to be great beginning to end, and I've really enjoyed the probably 5 or 6 hours I've put into it so far. I think it's brilliant.
I think
it's interesting.
30 at this point.
I'm in between the two of you. Yeah, I'm in between. You're 13. You've not done a full run. Jesus,
I've got to Hades a couple of times, and it's Theseus and the Minotaur. They wreck me every time. I'm still learning their attack patterns. After I get through Theseus and the Minotaur, I get to Hades, but it's actually having the death defies to survive that's the problem.
No, that makes sense. It's once you crack it the first time, it becomes a lot more like, oh, okay, I think you kind of get it. But no, it's so interesting because it is a culmination, isn't it? It's a culmination of everything they've done before, Richard. And that's what I love about this studio. They learn from and evolve their games from their previous projects, and they're always experimenting, always trying new things. But in a way, this does. I haven't really thought of it in the way you just described it, but it does have that sort of Bastion DNA that was what made that game so incredible. They really seem to, I think, looked back at that and gone, well, that's still one of our most well-regarded, and maybe how do we fold that in? And it's been a fascinating journey of watching them do this in early access, and as the game evolved, there's a fantastic documentary about the whole development process, which I'll share with you guys after if you're interested.
Yes, please.
Basically, I don't do this, right? So back in the day when Bastion, and I beat it twice back to back in 2 days when it first came out, I emailed them and I thanked them for their game. And it's like, it's not often that a developer has that impact on me. And because of that, will always follow them and will always have a soft spot for Supergiant games. They're just good people doing what they can to make great experiences, which is what Experience Kills is all about, is acknowledging, the fact that developers try to make great experiences, make fantastic games. And I think these guys have nailed it. They deserve all the plaudits. And I want this in at number 1, and screw Cyberpunk as the last pick. Let's just ignore that, and let's put this as our game of the year for 2020.
100% agreed on every point.
Yeah, I think if we can agree not to try and defend Cyberpunk.
No, I'm not even going to bother.
Giants.
No, I can't. Oh, we got a Dexter visit
Hello,
as well now.
Dex.
Hello, Dexter. Hey, it's awesome. Everybody's coming to visit today. I should get my wife to do a cameo. She'd love that. Won't find that at all embarrassing. But no, I think I'm not even going to try. There's no point. I was hoping Cyberpunk would have come up a lot earlier, and I would have had at least a go at talking about it. But I was never going to fight for it to be Game of the Year, and there's no way I could fight against Hades with it. No way.
Cyberpunk is an interesting game. I think Cyberpunk has the potential to be Game of the Year in 2021 once the game is finished.
Yeah,
that's when it'll be good.
It's so cute.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He's so cute. It was so distracting with text on the camera.
I could probably make an argument why I prefer Last of Us Part 2 to Hades. That would be based purely on experience at the minute, because I've played a lot more of Last of Us Part 2, but it would be churlish to diminish what Supergiant have achieved with Hades. I can already tell it's great, and I think we've talked in this show about how it's important to give exposure to games that people might not ordinarily play. Last of Us 2 doesn't need that exposure. I think if we can point a few people in the direction of Hades and say, look, this is the game that you should play from last year, then that's a great thing.
I mean, look, we're far from the only people doing that. It's Game of the Year winner all over the place, and rightly so. And it's great to see what I would call a triple indie, if you've heard that term before. It's a studio of about 20 people, 30 people, bit less, probably somewhere around there. I don't know exactly, but it's not massive. Obviously not a huge publisher, obviously not a huge developer. Doing this, lockdown as well, getting this up to one, getting this out on Switch during the pandemic, having it as polished, as well constructed as it is. I've never experienced a bug. I've never seen a problem in the 1.0 release. Doing it the way they did it with early access, just my god, the art, it's the combination of all of it, isn't it? It's just the gameplay is tight and satisfying and rewarding. The visuals are rich and gorgeous and lush and so varied, considering it's hell. Who thought you could make hell
but
look
it's not all hell,
different as
you've
that?
got Elysium.
Well, yeah, but
it's
but spoilers.
Games that have some weird looking version of hell. Do you remember Agony when that came out and how weird
don't talk to me about Agony.
Why are we talking about Agony on a game?
Please, let's talk about Agony. Please never bring that up again. Thank you.
Agonizing.
It's the worst, one of the worst things I've ever played. But
right to hell.
And then incredible writing. Incredible writing, incredible voice acting from so few people. Let's also not forget the music, right? Darren Korb has made all of their music, and this is frankly just another amazing soundtrack which I've been listening to on Spotify, and it's so fucking good, and it's more varied than ever before, and there's some amazing like thrashing, like metal tracks and stuff. It's so fucking cool. And it's like just mind-blowingly good across everything, and you can tell there's so much love and passion and desire to make the best game possible.
See,
and they've done it.
I'm sad that I didn't play this game until Christmas Day last year. I was sat down to play it. Within 15 minutes, I had bought it.
I'm sad that I haven't had a chance to play it yet. So
get it on PC, get it on Epic or Steam. I think Steam now as well. Yeah, it came out at the same time on Switch. Play it, Cameron. Play it.
If you like Dead Cells, Hades will blow you away.
Just stop playing Dead Cells. You'll just play this. It's better. It's better.
I want to say thank you for bearing with me while I was being bugged by the parasite, by the way.
It's horrible. We don't mind. It's so cute.
I don't think he's ever actually been on the stream, has he? So
no. He is now immortalised on YouTube forevermore.
It does hurt. It hurts me a little bit to put Cyberpunk at 2, but I guess that's what this means.
Indeed.
You could have kicked it out earlier, mate.
Cyberpunk and its bugs have been sent all the way down to Hades itself.
Hey. So I think that definitively names Hades as our Game of the Year.
Woo!
Yakuza got the most wins still, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Just for that, I'm going to change that down to 1 win.
You can't.
I can. I have keyboard that says otherwise.
And really, none of them won at all because Hades won the end.
It had to. If ever there was a shoe-in for the Experience Guild Game of the Year, it was this. I mean, it sums up everything.
We're not playing for points, Richard.
It sums up everything that we're about here, about what we're about, you know, drawing attention to, what we're about, championing and celebrating, and it's Hades, all the fucking way. So that is fantastic. Shall I wrap this up then, boys?
Yeah.
We have come to the end of our competition, I suppose.
Well done, Hades, for 2020. I'm glad you guys have come and finally listened to this lengthy podcast and video.
Just under 3 hours.
3 hours of discussion. It only feels like
2 hours and 50 minutes.
I've had a great time with you guys. It's been amazing having Richard back. Richard, who you can find at Colonel Red on Twitter. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for not dying with COVID. That would have sucked. Yeah, appreciate that, buddy. Rob's been with us as always at Homeless Mr. Gibbs on Twitter. Cameron's been here as well, bringing that wild card, bringing that stats man. He's a stats man, and you can find him at Camelot on Twitter. You can find me at DIYE, and you can find us at Experience Kills. While you're on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. We would much appreciate that. And until next year, finally, that's Game of the Year out of the way. But we'll be back soon with more video reviews and definitely our wonderful weekly podcast. Goodbye, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.